Chapter 1076 Midnight Assassination Attempt. Later that night, after eating dinner with the Tian family, Yuan returned to his room. Inside his room, Yuan practiced the soul nourishment array that Huang Chen had taught him. Golden array symbols filled the room, and Yuan could feel his soul strength strengthening very slightly. A few hours into the night, when it was slightly past midnight, Feng Yuxiang suddenly said, "Young master, there's an expert nearby, and he's spying on us." Still focused on his array symbols, Yuan casually said, "I am aware. Let's just wait and see what he's planning on doing first. Don't come out. I don't want to alert him." "I understand." Unbeknownst the assassin Mao, his presence had already been noticed by his target. "A mere child. I will finish this in a minute and leave." Assassin Mao suddenly consumed a pill, which altered his appearance to look exactly like Tian Yinyu. After making sure that there was nobody near Yuan's room, he approached the door and knocked on it. Yuan stopped whatever he was doing and went to open the door to find Tian Yinyu standing there. And without saying a word, Assassin Mao entered the room with a seductive smile on his face. "Miss Yinyu? What's wrong? Are you still worried about the Lin family? I'm telling you, it'll be fine," Yuan said to her with a gentle smile on his face. Assassin Mao laughed inwardly, feeling quite gleeful about how well his plan was working. He then placed his hands on Yuan's shoulders before guiding him to the bed. "Oh? What are you doing?" Yuan asked her as he laid on the bed, looking a little nervous. Assassin Mao, still with Tian Yinyu's appearance, placed a finger on his own lips and made a quite shushing sound. "Shoo. Ah. I see." Yuan's nervous smile became filled with excitement, and he closed his eyes. "Go ahead. Do whatever you want." It was at this moment Assassin Mao retrieved a dagger from his spatial ring and stabbed it towards Yuan's chest where his heart was located. "Die!" Assassin Mao shouted when the tip of the blade reached Yuan's chest. However, almost as though he'd struck steel, the blade halted right on top of Yuan's clothes. Yuan slowly opened his eyes and spoke in a calm voice, his gaze completely tranquil. "This wasn't what I had in mind, Miss Yinyu." "Shit." Assassin Mao had no idea what had just happened and couldn't comprehend why he couldn't penetrate Yuan's skin with his heaven-grade spiritual treasure. However, it was clear to him that his target was still alive. Assassin Mao suddenly released his cultivation base, filling the room with the aura of a 5th-level spirit king. He then lifted his dagger into the air and plunged it down for a second time. However, just like the last time, his dagger was stopped by Yuan's skin. "I don't think this is how you captivate a man's heart, Miss Yinyu." Yuan uttered this remark in a sarcastic tone. How? Assassin Mao was in disbelief, and he tried pushing his dagger with all of his might, but it was pointless. It was at this moment Assassin Mao and Yuan could hear the sound of footsteps rushing towards their location. "Yuan, is everything okay? What was that spiritual energy just now?" Tian Yinyu's panicked voice resounded. "Fuck." Realizing that his mission had failed, Assassin Mao immediately turned towards the door and prepared to escape. However, right as he reached the door, a hand suddenly grabbed his neck from behind, yanking him back into the room. Ugh! Assassin Mao tried to break the hold on his neck, but he was unsuccessful. Tian Yinyu and her caretaker showed up a moment later to see Yuan choking someone who looked exactly like Tian Yinyu. What in heaven's name is going on here?" Tian Yinyu exclaimed when she saw this puzzling scene. "Hey, Miss Yinyu. This rat disguised as you just tried to assassinate me," Yuan calmly explained to her. "What? Let me go, you bastard." Assassin Mao spoke in his original voice, startling Tian Yinyu. And he continued, "Do you know who I am? If you don't let me go, my fellow brothers and sisters from the Silent Rippers will hunt you down." Silent Rippers? Tian Yinyu was terrified upon hearing this name. However, Yuan didn't recognize them and asked, "Silent Rippers? Never heard of you guys. Are you mercenaries or bandits?" "Why Yuan? They're neither of those. They're a notorious group of assassins that have terrorized the third heaven for hundreds of years," Tian Yenyu quickly said. "Oh? Assassins, huh?" This meant someone had put a hit on me. Who was it? The Lin family? As if I'd tell you anything. Hurry up and unhand me. If my companions don't hear from me by tomorrow, they will all come rushing here. Assassin Mao said. I'm already being hunted, so it wouldn't make a difference if I kill you or not, since I will be hunted anyways. Yuan smiled. Wait. We can work something out. Assassin Mao quickly said. You have a minute to change my mind. We will stop the assassination and go after those that tried to kill you. How does that sound? Assassin Mao said. Don't listen to him, Yuan. Tian Yenyu suddenly said. The Silent Rippers will always finish their job. And since the Lin family is involved, they won't stop hunting you unless the Lin family cancels the mission. Yuan smiled and said, I never intended to listen to him. I just wanted to see what kind of excuse he'll give. Wait. I swear. I am not lying. If you kill me, my companions will definitely kill you. Then I shouldn't waste any more time and start preparing to greet them. Yuan said, and without any hesitation, crushed the assassin's neck, killing him in an instant. When Assassin Mao's body limped, Yuan tossed his body out into the courtyard and dusted his hands. Tian Yenyu stared at Assassin Mao's dead body with a speechless look on her face. He killed one of the Silent Ripper's assassins just like that? Just how powerful is he? She wondered inwardly. Chapter 1077 Dealing with the Silent Rippers. Oh, I should have questioned him before killing him. Whatever. More of them will come sooner or later anyway. Yuan realized this after killing Assassin Mao. Why, young lady? We must evacuate from this place as soon as possible before the Silent Rippers raid this place. The old lady exclaimed in a panicked manner after she snapped out of her daze. Evacuate? Leave where? Where can we go? If we're being targeted by the Silent Rippers, there is nowhere in this world we can hide. Tian Yenyu said with a frown. But we have to try. Not only did we offend the Lin family, but we're now targeted by the Silent Rippers. This is literally the worst-case scenario. Tian Xianzu showed up shortly after with a profound frown on his face. What is this commotion? He asked them, unaware of the situation. Tian Yenyu pointed at the corpse in their courtyard and explained the situation to him. What? The Silent Rippers? Those Lin family bastards actually went as far as to hire the most notorious assassins in the whole third heaven? Are they insane? Master, I think we should evacuate this place as soon as possible. The old lady said. Tian Xiangsu sighed, even if we run away and hide in the sewers, the Silent Rippers will eventually find us. Calm down, all of you. Yuan finally spoke, and he said, the best course of action right now is to stay here, or I can protect all of you. How delusional. The old lady suddenly shouted. You don't even know anything about the Silent Rippers nor how terrifying they can be. The Silent Rippers may only be a small group of assassins, but they are the best of the best within the third heaven, and they even have several peak spirit kings amongst their ranks. Do you really think you can protect us from the Silent Ripper by yourself? There should be a limit to your arrogance. Old Zhou, please calm down. Tian Yenyu said to her, who was breathing heavily and filled with anger. She is right, Yuan. Even the 7 legacy families cannot handle the Silent Rippers alone, much less a single person. Tian Xianzu shook his head in a dispirited manner, seemingly already given up. Yuan smiled and said, Who said that I will be alone? You guys, come out. The very next moment, 3 figures appeared beside Yuan, startling the Tian family. Let me introduce you guys to my companions. This is Xiao Hua, whom you've already met. Don't be fooled by her young appearance, because she's actually a spirit king. Yuan pointed at Xiao Hua. This is Feng Yuxiang, who is also a peak spirit king. This is Lan Yingying. She may only be a spirit lord, but she can handle spirit kings by herself. Even if you have 3 more people, that won't change anything. Old Zhou said. Yuan chuckled, don't underestimate my friends, and don't compare them to your average cultivators, because they are not human. What do you mean by that? Tian Shenzu swallowed nervously. They are divine beasts. Feng Yuxiang is a phoenix, and Lan Yingying is a divine serpent. They're what? The Tian family couldn't believe their ears. Divine beasts are akin to divine entities in their eyes, and there were 2 of them before them right this moment. Anyways, no matter if they are the Silent Rippers or the Lin family. With them here, nobody will be able to harm you guys. Yuan reassured them. The Tian family eventually calmed down and decided to trust him. Meanwhile, the Silent Rippers had another meeting with each other through communication jade slips. Brother Mao's life slip just broke. He's dead. A solemn voice spoke. How is this possible? Brother Mao is a 5th level spirit king. His target is only around 20 years old, right? There's no way Brother Mao could lose to someone like that. Perhaps the target has a powerful bodyguard beside him. Another said. That is likely what happened. Let's gather and avenge Brother Mao. Yes. A few days later. Steward Lin. What the fuck is going on? Why is that bastard Xiaoyang still alive? He was even spotted eating merrily at the Heavenly Restaurant today. Lin Minghai demanded an answer after hearing about this news. Please be patient, young master. I have already hired the Silent Rippers to take care of Xiaoyang. It will only be a matter of time. Steward Jean said. However, his communication jade slip trembled a moment later, and this jade slip was used to communicate with Ming Lao, who was supposed to contact him if the Silent Rippers contacted. What happened? Steward Jean asked. The Silent Ripper is asking for your presence. Please come to the Yellow River Pavilion as soon as possible, Senior Jean. I understand. Tell them that I will be there within 15 minutes. Steward Jean then said to Lin Minghai, the Silent Ripper has made contact with us. I will go speak with them now. Sometime later, he arrived at the Yellow River restaurant. After finding his friend Ming Lao, he also noticed a skinny man sitting at the same table. This skinny man exuded no presence and appeared to be immortal, but Steward Jean immediately knew the man's identity. Greetings, Senior. Steward Jean bowed to the skinny man. Take a seat. The skinny man spoke in an authoritative voice. Once he was seated, Steward Jean asked, How may I address the senior? You can just call me Kong. I understand, Senior Kong. Assassin Kong then spoke, Now then, I called you here to verify some things. This Xiao Yang. Is he being guarded by an expert? As far as I am aware, he's not. Steward Jean shook his head. He's not? He's not. According to my investigation, there is only a little girl by his side. Unless that little girl is actually an expert in disguise, I don't think he has any other bodyguard. A little girl, huh? Assassin Kong began pondering in silence. Chapter 1078 Dealing with the Silent Rippers, 2. After pondering for some time, Assassin Kong spoke in a grim voice, One of our brothers has died already, and he was a 5th level spirit king. What? Steward Jean exclaimed out loud after hearing this shocking information. Quiet. Assassin Kong glared at him. He then continued, This Xiaoyang is clearly much more difficult to kill than you thought, so we are asking for an increased payment. How much more are you asking? Steward Jean asked with a solemn expression. 10 million. Assassin Kong blurted this number out without any hesitation. 10 million. Steward Jean swallowed nervously. He was already being extremely generous with 20 million spirit stones to get rid of a child, so adding another 10 million definitely made him hesitate. Since the Chaoyang has already killed one of their members, they won't stop hunting him even if I refuse, but that is a very risky decision, especially since I gave them this mission. Steward Jean sighed inwardly. He was confident that the Silent Rippers would go after Yuan even if he doesn't pay the extra 10 million, but he could be killed by them if he took advantage of this knowledge. In the end, he had to bite the bullet and agree to pay an extra 10 million spirit stones. You can send the money to the same location. We will pick it up in 2 days. Assassin Kong said. I understand. Assassin Kong left the restaurant shortly after. Thank you, Ming Lao. Steward Jean handed 100 spirit stones to Ming Lao for his work before leaving the restaurant as well. Meanwhile, at the Tian family, Tian Yenyu sat in her room with Feng Yuxiang sitting not far away. It's been several days since then. When will the Silent Rippers come? This wait is making me anxious. I cannot concentrate on my cultivation under this stress. Tian Yenyu sighed out loud. You've been complaining about this since the first day. When will you stop? Feng Yuxiang said. And she continued in a sighing voice, why did I get stuck with you? What's wrong with me? Besides my complaining. Tian Yenyu asked. Poof. Feng Yuxiang coldly snorted, and she said, don't think I have forgotten already. You kissed my young master without his permission. If he wasn't helping you, I would have burned you to death on the spot at that time. Seriously. It's just a kiss. Tian Yenyu said. Just a kiss? Do you know who the young master is? Feng Yuxiang exclaimed. No, I don't. If you tell me, I will. Tian Yenyu smiled. Feng Yuxiang became speechless, mostly because she also didn't know Yuan's true background, and his prior lives didn't count. The young master is someone. Just as she opened her mouth, Feng Yuxiang suddenly halted her words, and her face turned serious. They are here, she said in a solemn voice. The Silent Rippers? Tian Yenyu immediately jumped to her feet and retrieved her weapon. Feng Yuxiang nodded, yes, but there's something odd about them. They're only focusing on the young master for some reason. On Yuan? Will he be fine alone? Tian Yenyu asked, as Xiaohua was with Tian Xianzu and Lan Yingying was with the servants and old Zhou. Yes. No matter how many people come for him, he will be fine. Feng Yuxiang said with a confident look on her face. Meanwhile, a few rooms away from Tian Yenyu's room, when he noticed the presence surrounding the Tian family's residence, Yuan calmly opened the door and went outside to the courtyard. 17 people, all spirit kings, huh? Yuan assessed all of the assassins with his divine sense that covered the entire house and more. When the assassins saw his action, they quickly realized that their presence was exposed. Since their target is already aware of their presence, they decided to show themselves, surrounding Yuan in the courtyard a moment later. Are you the bastard who killed Brother Mao? One of them asked him in a cold voice. Is that the name of the assassin from a few days ago? Yuan asked them. If so, yes, I killed him. Don't worry, I made sure it was a quick and painless death. The assassins trembled in anger when they heard his words, and they all released their aura, which bore down on Yuan like a mountain. However, Yuan remained standing there with a calm look on his face, almost as if he couldn't even feel the pressure. This surprised the assassins. There were 4 peak spirit kings amongst them, yet they cannot make a single spirit king bow down with their pressure? Something was wrong here. So you're saying that you don't have any bodyguards? That you killed Brother Mao by yourself? Yuan showed them a provocative smile and said, "A weakling like him, it didn't take much effort." "You bastard." One of the 17 assassins couldn't hold his rage any longer and lunged at Yuan. Without even turning to look at the attacker, Yuan calmly dodged his strike before catching him by the neck. The others immediately went into an offensive position when they saw this. "If you're smart, you will let him go," said a skinny man. "If I do, will you spare my life?" Yuan asked him. Assassin Kong didn't respond, he couldn't. "I figured." Yuan mumbled, and without hesitation, he crushed the neck of the assassin in his grasp. "Kill him!" Assassin Kong roared with bloodshot eyes. The others sprang into action, and they attacked Yuan from multiple directions. Daggers, throwing knives, hidden weapons, the assassins attacked Yuan with pretty much every weapon used by assassins. However, almost as though his body was made of the world's strongest steel, the weapons bounced off his body. What the fuck? The assassins were surprised when they saw this. He must have some kind of spiritual treasure protecting him. They quickly came to this conclusion. Keep attacking. It can only endure so much. Assassin Kong said. Thus, the assassins continued to attack Yuan while he casually stood there without a care in the world. What in heaven's name? Tian Yinyu was left speechless when she witnessed this scene with her divine sense. "I told you that he would be fine," Feng Yuxiang said with a smile. Chapter 1079 Dealing with the Silent Rippers, 3. After trying for many minutes and failing to break through Yuan's invisible armor, the Silent Rippers stopped their attacks momentarily. "Fucking hell, what kind of trick are you using? Stop standing there and fight us like a real cultivator." The assassins tried to get him to remove his invisible armor. Yuan merely laughed at them. "I'm not using any tricks. You're all just too weak to damage my perfect physique." "What? Perfect physique? That's just a legend. There's no way you actually have the perfect physique," Assassin Kong exclaimed. "I don't care if you believe me or not." Yuan shrugged. "Anyways, tell me, what is your mission? Is it just to assassinate me, or are you going to harm the Tian family as well?" "If you tell me, I will remove my armor." "So you are wearing a spiritual treasure?" Yuan raised an eyebrow. "I never said that I didn't. I merely said that I wasn't using any tricks." "Can wearing armor be considered a trick?" "I don't think so." After a moment of silence, Assassin Kong spoke. "Our mission is only to kill you, Xiaoyang. We were instructed to not touch the Tian family." "Are you happy now?" "Yes, I am quite happy. Here, I will keep my words and take my armor off for you." Yuan proceeded to take off his invisible dragon cloak. "Now!" Assassin Kong suddenly roared. All 16 assassins sprung into action instantly, attacking Yuan with everything they got. A slight grin appeared on Yuan's face right before an immense pressure suddenly covered the entire courtyard. This pressure forced all of the assassins to their knees, with the Peak Spirit Kings barely resisting it. What is this?" The assassins began panicking. "Heavenly Domain," Yuan calmly responded. "Are you guys really the most notorious assassins in the third heaven? You're not much better than the Stone Bandits." He proceeded to mock them. "Screw you." Assassin Kong and the other Peak Spirit Kings managed to stand up despite the Heavenly Domain pressuring them. However, their movements were still severely restricted. It was at this moment that Yuan retrieved the Empyrean Overlord, and he proceeded to kill the assassins one by one, starting from those that couldn't resist the Heavenly Domain. "Stop! I will kill you!" The assassins roared like beasts when their companions were killed before their eyes, and they couldn't do anything to stop it. Within moments, Yuan had cut their number all the way down to just one. "Is this all of you? Or will there be more coming later?" Yuan asked Assassin Kong. Assassin Kong just kneeled there with a dazed look on his face, his spirit broken. Poof. Yuan didn't bother waiting for a response and decapitated him before burning all of their bodies, leaving behind their spatial rings and treasures. You guys can come out now, Yuan said out loud. Tian Yenyu and Tian Xianzu came out of their hiding spot the following moment. You actually managed to kill all of them by yourself. Tian Xianzu was in disbelief, but the corpses before him were solid evidence that he could not refute. Yuan nodded, and he asked, "Do you know how many assassins the Silent Rippers have?" "I killed 1718 if we consider the one from a few days ago." Tian Xianzu pondered for a moment before responding, "Honestly, nobody knows the exact number, but according to the rumors, there should be about 100 assassins within their group." 100? Yuan exclaimed. "That's a very small group if you compare them to the other groups that have hundreds if not thousands of assassins." Tian Yenyu said. "I guess that makes sense. Anyways, since there are still more than 80 assassins out there, we will continue this for a few more days to see their response." Yuan then said. "All right." A few days later, Steward Jean was summoned again by the Silent Rippers. This time, they brought him to a secret location where over 50 of them were gathered. What is this about? If it's about the money, I have already paid the additional 10 million spirit stones. Steward Jean said, his back soaked in sweat. Just who in heaven's name did you request us to kill? 18 of our brothers and sisters are dead because of you. The leader of the Silent Rippers roared at Steward Jean. What? That's impossible. Steward Jean felt his body becoming numb from shock after hearing this information. Impossible? I dare you to tell me it's impossible again after seeing this. The leader proceeded to place 18 broken life tablets on the table before them. This is... Steward Jean swallowed nervously. Each of these represents one of our companions, and they all died on the same day within moments of each other. Tell me. Who is this Xiaoyang? If you don't give us a satisfying answer, we will kill 18 people from the Lin family. Steward Jean became terrified after hearing the leader's threats. I swear. I really don't know anything about him or his background. He showed up suddenly and started helping the Tian family. He claimed that his ancestors owed a debt to the Tian family and that he's there to repay that debt. I believed he was a nobody, but since we cannot touch the Tian family after what happened to the Stone Bandits, we decided to hire you guys to kill him to send a message. Steward Jean revealed everything to the assassins. The leader could tell that Steward Jean wasn't lying, but he was not satisfied with the answer. 300 million spirit stones. You will compensate us for our companion's death and pay for our effort. This is the first time the Silent Rippers will be going all out for a mission with all hands on deck. 300 million spirit stones? That's too much. We don't have that much money. Steward Jean nearly collapsed from shock after hearing this astronomical number. Don't fuck with me. The Lin family is one of the 7 legacy families. You can definitely pay up. You can either pay us the money or we will kill people from the Lin family. And we will consider each life to be worth 100,000 spirit stones, so we will kill 3,000 people in total. The leader shouted. No way. Steward Jean looked like he was in a dismay, and he regretted hiring the Silent Rippers immensely. Chapter 1080 Dealing with the Silent Rippers, 4. I understand. I will pay 300 million spirit stones. Steward Jean said. However, he was inwardly hoping for these assassins to be killed by Yuan so that he won't have to pay them this astronomical amount of money. Naturally, the Lin family could pay 300 million spirit stone if they wanted, but this deal between Steward Jean and the Silent Rippers was not part of the Lin family's decision. Only he and Lin Minghai were involved in this scandal, and if their family learns of this, they could be punished, especially considering the recent commotion. Therefore, if he had to pay 300 million spirit stones, he had to do so without the Lin family's help. After returning to the Lin family, Steward Jean told Lin Minghai of the situation. When the young master of the Lin family heard this unpleasant news, his face turned as pale as clean bedsheets, almost as if his blood had been drained. How could this have happened? 300 million spirit stones? Where the fuck are we going to get that kind of money without asking for my family for help? Lin Minghai exclaimed, his face and back soaked in cold sweat. If this Xiao Yang somehow manages to kill the rest of the Silent Rippers, we won't have to pay them. Steward Jean said in a weak voice. Are you fucking stupid? You think he can handle the Silent Rippers all by himself? I mean, he's already killed 18 of them. Steward Jean said, clinging onto hope. I don't know what trick he's used to defeat so many assassins, but it will not happen a second time. Furthermore, the entire organization will be there this time. He's doomed to die. Lin Minghai said, mostly because he didn't want to believe that they had offended someone powerful enough to defeat the Silent Rippers. Anyways, I think the best course of action is to wait and see what happens. Steward Jean said. If we're left with no choice, we will have to ask your family for help. I believe they will be more angry if 3,000 people in their family die because of us. Lin Minghai sighed, we have no choice since we won't be able to pay 300 million spirit stones even if I sold all of my treasures. Later that night, 83 assassins surrounded the Tian family's household. They are here. Feng Yuxiang warned Tian Yenyu and the others when she noticed their presence. How many are there? Tian Xinzu asked. 83 people. All of them are spirit kings, and 11 of them are peak spirit kings. Xiao Hua calmly said. 11 peak spirit kings? Old Zhou almost fell unconscious from shock after hearing this information. You stay here and protect them, Phoenix. Xiao Hua will go with Brother Yuan just in case. Huh? Why do I have to stay here with them? Can't you do it? Or are you trying to earn points by yourself? Feng Yuxiang looked at her with a suspicious gaze. I can protect them by myself. Lan Yingying suddenly said, since they're mostly targeting Yuan, they won't pay any attention to us. Thank you. Feng Yuxiang said to her before leaving the room with Xiao Hua. However, they didn't immediately go to Yuan. Instead, they hid their presence and watched the situation from afar, as they wouldn't be interfering with Yuan unless he needed help. Meanwhile, Yuan was already waiting in the courtyard for the assassins, and he has been cultivating there for the past few days. That's the bastard that killed 18 of our brothers and sisters? He looks so young. One of the assassins was shocked when he saw Yuan's appearance. Don't be fooled by his appearance. He's a peak spirit king. And his appearance might even be fake. The leader of the Silent Rippers said to them using divine sense. The Silent Rippers did not immediately approach Yuan, and they assessed the situation and surroundings to make sure this wasn't a trap, as it looked like one. Sometime later, Yuan opened his eyes and spoke in a calm voice, "How long are you guys going to make me wait? If you're worried that this might be a trap, don't worry, I don't need such tactics to deal with you lot." A gentle breeze swept the courtyard the following moment, and 83 figures appeared out of thin air like ghosts, all of them surrounding Yuan, their bodies exuding intense killing intent. I don't know who you are, but congratulations. You're the first to push our Silent Rippers to the edge. A bulky middle-aged man spoke in a grim voice. Yuan glanced at this man and smiled, "So you're the leader, huh?" The leader frowned, "How can you tell?" It's not hard, especially considering that the atmosphere around you is vastly superior to the rest of the people here. That's right. I am the leader of the Silent Rippers, Zhan Shichai. Remember my name when you go to hell. He continued, any last words before we take care of you? Yuan nodded, just one. Is this really the last of you guys? I don't want to wait around for more of you after killing everyone here. Kill him. Zhang Shichai suddenly roared, and the 83 assassins there launched their attack at Yuan. Boom! The entire courtyard exploded, and the whole street trembled the following moment. However, Yuan remained unscathed, which shocked the assassins. This isn't good. Yuan didn't want the assassins to blow up the whole residence, so he attacked the assassins aggressively. Using his movement technique, he traveled from one assassin to another in a single step, and every time he brandished his sword, a life from the silent rippers would perish. Within minutes, the courtyard became dyed in red from the assassins' blood, with their corpses and body parts littered everywhere. The silent rippers became more terrified of Yuan as time passed, and they quickly realized that they had messed with the wrong person, but alas, it was already too late for them to change their mind. Chapter 1081, Confronting the Lin Family. Within minutes of the silent rippers showing up in the courtyard, Yuan had already killed half of them. His movements were extremely fluid and decisive, and every single time he brandished his arm, one or more assassins would perish. This guy is a monster. Leader, what should we do? At this rate, he will completely obliterate us. The assassins turned to Zhang Shichai for help. He won't be able to keep that up forever. He must be using a tremendous amount of spiritual energy. It will only be a matter of time before his weakness shows. Keep pushing. Zhang Shichai commanded as he tried to attack Yuan, but he couldn't even catch Yuan's shadow, much less reach him. In the end, none of the assassins were able to harm Yuan. Hey, you're the only one left now. Yuan spoke as he looked at Zhang Shichai with a calm gaze. Zhang Shichai, who was kneeling on the floor with a missing arm and multiple wounds on his body, gritted his teeth in frustration, his gaze at Yuan filled with killing intent, yet he could not do anything about it. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get this over with. Kill me already. Zhang Shichai had already given up all hopes of surviving this ordeal. Yuan pondered for a moment before speaking. No, I won't kill you. What? Why not? A voice that wasn't Zhang Shichai's voice suddenly resounded. Yuan turned to look at Tian Yenyu, who had come out of hiding and was approaching them. Why won't you kill him? He's the leader of the silent rippers. Because I still have some use for him, he said. And he continued, I'll give you a chance to live. Go report yourself to the authorities and let them know about your mission and how the Lin family had hired you to kill me. You can go fuck yourself. I'd rather kill myself than to give myself up. Zhang Shichai laughed out loud. Is that so? Yuan then turned to look at Tian Yenyu and asked, Do you want to visit the Lin family with me? You can stay here if you'd like. What do you mean by that? Are you going to the Lin family right now? Tian Yenyu's eyes widened with shock. That's right. If he's not going to give himself up, I will do it myself. When Zhang Shichai heard Yuan's words, he immediately tried to explode his dantian. Heaven's sealing technique. Yuan noticed this and sealed his cultivation before he could do anything. What did you just do to me? Zhang Shichai roared. I sealed your cultivation so you can't do anything stupid. Hearing this, Zhang Shichai tried to bite his tongue off next. However, when he opened his mouth, he found out that he couldn't close it back, almost as though there was something holding onto his mouth. Give it up. You won't die unless I let you. Yuan said. He turned to look at the dumbfounded Tian Yenyu and asked again, So? Are you coming? She quickly snapped out of her daze and nodded with a solemn expression on her face. Let go. Yuan grabbed Zhang Shichai by the neck before flying out of the resilience with Tian Yenyu. Meanwhile, Feng Yuxiang and Xiao Hua entered his body with Lan Yingying staying behind just in case there were any more assassins. Bring me to the Lin family. Yuan said to Tian Yenyu. Follow me. It was at this moment a notification appeared before Yuan. Congratulations! You have subdued the silent rippers. You have completed a hidden quest. Fame plus 10,000. Due to your righteous actions, the third heaven will become a safer place for the innocent. Your reputation within the faction has increased significantly. Your faction rank has ranked up. Faction rank, Captain. Sometime later, Yuan and Tian Yenyu arrived at the Lin family's main household. They descended in front of their front gates and said to the guards, "Bring your patriarch out here. I have some questions for him." "Who the hell are you? This isn't a place for children like you." The guards there immediately frowned. "Scram before we make you." Yuan lifted Zhang Shichai into the air and held him before the guards, and he spoke in a cold voice, "Your Lin family hired assassinations to kill me. If you don't bring out your patriarch, I will have to force him out." "What?" the guards exclaimed after hearing his claims. "Outrageous! Why would the Lin family assassinate you? That's some serious accusations, boy. If you value your life, keep your mouth shut." Yuan sighed before speaking. "I will ask you again. Are you going to get your patriarch or not?" This chapter is updated by freewebble.cm. "Piss off!" the guard roared. "Is that so?" A cold look appeared on Yuan's face. He turned to look at Tian Yenyu and handed Zhang Shichai to her. "Stay back and watch over him for me." "What are you going to do?" She had a bad feeling about this. "Nothing much," he said with a smile. After hanging Zhang Shichai to Tian Yenyu, Yuan turned to focus on the gates, and the next moment, boom! Yuan kicked down the entire gate, shocking the guards there. "Why, you crazy bastard! Intruder! Seize him!" When the pedestrians there saw the scene, they stopped whatever they were doing to spectate. "Who is this crazy bastard? He dares to kick down the Lin family's front gates? Heavens! He's even beating the guards down." More and more guards showed up to confront Yuan, but they were all beaten within seconds. Eventually, the real experts showed up with their Spirit King aura filling the place. "Halt! What do you think you are doing? Identify yourself." For Spirit Kings surrounded Yuan. "My name is Xiao Yang, and I am here to speak with the Lin family's patriarch," Yuan said, and he pointed at Tian Yenyu and Zhang Shichai and continued, "That half-dead man is the leader of the Silent Rippers, and he told me that the Lin family had hired them to assassinate me. I am here to demand an answer from the Lin family." Yuan spoke in a loud and clear voice so that everyone from one end of the street to the other could hear him. Chapter 1082 Confronting the Lin Family, 2. What? The Lin family hired those notorious assassins, the Silent Rippers? The pedestrians outside the Lin family were shocked when they heard this claim by Yuan. This must be due to what happened recently. Then that rumor must have been true that the Lin family hired those bandits to harass the Tian family. They must have hired the Silent Rippers to silence them. How vicious and cruel. I never knew the Lin family were like this. What an eye-opener. The experts from the Lin family frowned when they heard the pedestrians' words. Not good. At this rate, the Lin family's reputation will hit rock bottom. They all cried inwardly. There must have been a misunderstanding. The Lin family did not hire the Silent Rippers. One of the experts said to Yuan. A misunderstanding? There are dozens of corpses in the Tian family because of the Silent Rippers, and many of them claim to have been hired by the Lin family. If you don't give an appropriate answer, I will have to stop being polite. Yuan calmly said. Stop being polite? You beat up our guards and spew nonsense in front of our building, yet you're still being polite? I cannot imagine what not being polite looks like. The experts cursed. What are you all waiting for? Hurry up and capture him. One of the experts suddenly said. The experts quickly surrounded Yuan when they heard this person, and just as they prepared to apprehend Yuan, he flipped his palms and showed these experts the symbols that suddenly appeared on it. Celestial Overlord Captain? The experts raised their eyebrows in a puzzled manner when they saw these words hovering above Yuan's palm. None of them recognized it. However, somewhere within the Lin family's building, an old man that had been watching the commotion through his divine sense suddenly snapped his eyelids open, his eyes filled with shock. That symbol. That's not possible. What is someone like him doing down here in the third heaven? This old man exclaimed, and without any hesitation, he rushed out of his room. Meanwhile, what the hell are you trying to attempt? One of the experts there asked Yuan after seeing the symbol but not recognizing it. You don't recognize it? I guess I gave you guys too much credit. Yuan shook his head when nobody there recognized the Celestial Overlord's faction symbol. This is why I didn't want to rely on this symbol. Nobody down here recognizes it. He sighed inwardly. If you think those worthless words will save you, think again. The experts made their movements. Wait. Halt. However, before they could do anything, a loud voice echoed loudly, causing all of these experts to flinch and halt their movements. When the experts turned around and saw the old man approaching them, their eyes widened with shock. Senior Lin. The experts there lowered their heads and bowed to him. Looks like someone actually recognizes the symbol. Yuan smiled inwardly after seeing the situation. Indeed, this old man recognized the Celestial Overlord symbol. Even though he has never been in the upper heavens or seen their symbol before, he has at least heard about it. In order to keep their descendants up to date about the situation in the upper heavens, these families in the upper heavens, such as the 7 legacy families, would send down the most information about the upper heavens down to their branch families in the lower heavens. And as one of the top factions in the entire 9 heavens, it would only make sense for these families in the upper heavens to include the Celestial Overlords. Although the chances were slim to none, it was not impossible for someone from the Celestial Overlords to show up in the lower heavens, and these families were afraid of that minor chance happening, hence the precaution. All of you, get on your knees and apologize to this young master. The old man roared at the experts. What? The experts and all of the spectators there were shocked speechless after hearing the old man's words. Did you not hear me? It's either that or your heads will roll on the floor. The old man shouted again. The experts trembled in fear, and they quickly kowtowed to Yuan the following moment while feeling completely baffled and puzzled by the situation. We apologize. The old man then turned to look at the guards and shouted, You bastards as well. Kowtow and apologize to the young master. If the experts had the kowtow to Yuan, these guards naturally had to follow, and unless they were unconscious, these guards got on their knees and kowtowed to Yuan, We apologize. The spectators there wondered what Yuan's real identity was for these people from the Lin family to kowtow to him. Young master, please forgive these fools for not recognizing your identity. They have never seen the real Mount Tai before, so they don't know any better. The old man said to him with a humble look on his face. Yuan calmly looked at him and asked, Who are you? This humble one is named Lin Chunhua. I was the previous patriarch of the Lin family. In other words, I am the current patriarch's father. I understand that something unfortunate has happened to the Tian family recently. Why don't we go talk somewhere more appropriate? Sure. Yuan nodded. He turned to look at Tian Yenyu and beckoned for her. Tian Yenyu swallowed nervously before approaching him. The ancestor of the Lin family is acting so respectful to him. Just what is his true identity? Did his ancestors really owe the Tian family? Why is he helping our Tian family? So many questions appeared in Tian Yenyu's head as she followed Yuan and the old man into the Lin family's household. Meanwhile, the pedestrians there scattered to spread the news, sending shockwaves throughout the city. An unknown individual had kicked down the Lin family's door, and not only did he not get tortured to death, but he was even politely escorted into the Lin family's household by their retired patriarch. Chapter 1083 Confronting the Lin Family, 3. After being escorted into the Lin family's best guest room, Lin Chunhua gestured for them to take a seat at the luxurious couches.
I will make some tea for us, Lin Chunhua said after they sat down. But Yuan waved his hand and said, "There's no need. Let's get straight to the point.
Your Lin family had hired assassins, the Silent Rippers, to assassinate me.
The proof is over there." He pointed at the half-dead man in Tian Yinyu's grasp.
Lin Chunhua looked at Zhang Shichai with a deep frown on his face.
"Why do you think my Lin family hired them?"
While I admit that we sometimes go overboard, we would never ask assassins for help, especially not the Silent Rippers. They said so themselves, and it's too much of a coincidence for this to happen after what we did to the Stone Bandits. If what you say is true, then I will investigate this situation and bring out the perpetrator and compensate you for the trouble. However, before I do that, I must notify the current patriarch of the Lin family about the situation and see what he has to say. Lin Chunhua retrieved a communication jade slip and mumbled into it.
"While we wait for him to show up, I have a few questions, if you don't mind." "Go ahead."
"You're a member of the esteemed celestial overlords, a captain at that.
Am I correct?" "Indeed." Yuan nodded. "Celestial overlords? What is that? A sect?"
Tian Yanyu wondered inwardly, as she has never heard of such a place before in her entire life.
"What is someone of your prestigious stature doing down here in the third heaven?"
"If you don't feel comfortable telling me, I completely understand. My ancestor owed a debt to the Tian family, but he is no longer able to repay that debt, hence why I am here."
Yuan explained. "Is that so? The Tian family, huh?"
The old man turned to look at Tian Yanyu, who was quite nervous at this moment. "To be honest with you, I usually spend most of my time in seclusion trying to break through to Spirit Emperor, so I don't know much about the situation outside the Lin family, and even the situation within the family isn't very clear to me, as it has been over 100 years since I last left seclusion," Lin Chunhua explained. And he continued, "If my Lin family has done anything wrong while I was away, I will personally step in to fix it."
"I swear." "That's good to hear," Yuan calmly said.
A few minutes later, the door slammed open when a middle-aged man rushed into the room.
"Father! What happened? What's the emergency? For you to come out unannounced and so suddenly." "Shut up!"
Lin Chunhua suddenly roared.
"You useless son, get your ass over here."
The middle-aged man was speechless.
How could his father treat him in such a manner before guests?
His father was someone who valued face more than anything, yet he was doing something that would lower the Lin family's face. However, he could tell that his father was enraged, so he didn't dare to question it. After closing the door, the patriarch of the Lin family walked to stand beside Lin Chunhua.
"I will ask you a question and you will answer me truthfully.
If you dare lie before my face, I will have you replaced," Lin Chunhua said, causing Patriarch Lin to swallow nervously. As the strongest cultivator in the Lin family and being the previous patriarch, Lin Chunhua still had immense authority within the Lin family, so he could very well do what he threatened to do.
"Did you, the Lin family, hire assassins to assassinate this young master here?" "The Silent Rippers, no less." "What? That's outrageous. We would never do such a thing." "Then how do you explain that?"
Lin Chunhua pointed at the half-dead Zhang Shichai.
Patriarch Lin turned to look at Zhang Shichai.
Although he didn't recognize Zhang Shichai at first due to his swollen face and overall bad condition, he would eventually recognize him.
I assent that the leader of the Silent Rippers, Zhang Shichai? What is he doing here?"
According to the young master, he raided the Tian family at the request of the Lin family.
However, he was subdued and the Silent Rippers were exterminated by the young master instead,
Lin Chunhua said.
"Young master."
Patriarch Lin was utterly gobsmacked when he realized how respectful his father was to this young man.
This is the first time Lin Chunhua has shown such respect for a junior like Yuan. I apologize for the late introduction. I am Lin Xingmi, the current patriarch of the Lin family. Patriarch Lin said to Yuan, but he clearly wasn't taking Yuan as seriously as his father.
Xiao Yang. This is who I am. Yuan showed the celestial overlord symbol for a second time.
Patriarch Lin raised his eyebrows in a puzzled manner when he saw Yuan's action. What is? He suddenly halted his words midway through his sentence, and his eyes widened with shock.
That's. Are you from the celestial overlords? Patriarch Lin exclaimed when he remembered reading about it. I am. He calmly nodded.
Patriarch Lin finally understood why his father came out of seclusion so suddenly and why he was being so respectful to Yuan. Although the Lin family is one of 7 legacy families and incredibly influential within their world, their family's influence actually becomes weaker the higher they go in the 9 heavens, and above the 5th heavens, they are no different than a middle-class family. Meanwhile, the celestial overlords are a peak faction in the supreme heaven, which is the peak of the 9 heavens. The difference between the celestial overlords and the 7 legacy families was akin to heaven and earth, they were simply incomparable. Please forgive me for not recognizing your identity sooner, young master. Patriarch Lin began addressing him as young master as well.
No way. Tian Yenyu muttered inwardly. Not in a million years could she have imagined such a situation would occur. Chapter 1084 Confronting the Lin Family, 4.
Rest assured, young master. I will find the culprit who hired the silent rippers to bother you no matter how long it will take. And if it truly turns out to be someone from my Lin family, I will immediately have him executed no matter his identity.
Patriarch Lin said with a serious expression on his face after learning of Yuan's identity and the immense background behind him. Yuan nodded with a satisfied look on his face. How long do you think it will take? No, I will have it done within a week. Patriarch Lin assured him in a confident voice. Then I will return to this place in a week. I hope you will have sorted everything out by then. Yuan stood up and turned to look at Tian Yenyu and said, Let's go. You can leave that man behind for the Lin family to interrogate. Why yes.
She snapped out of her daze and handed the leader of the silent rippers over to Patriarch Lin. He'll try to kill himself, so make sure you don't let that happen.
Yuan warned them before making his way to the exit. Neither Lin Chunhua or Patriarch Lin dared to stop him.
In fact, they wanted him to leave as soon as possible, as his presence was simply too heavy for them. Once Yuan's presence could no longer be felt, Lin Chunhua turned to look at his son and spoke in a grim voice, Do not mess this up.
The celestial overlords are a top faction within the supreme heaven.
A single mistake and we could be wiped out, and not even our family in the upper heaven would be able to do a thing. Moreover, the celestial overlords are known to be a righteous faction, so if it's true that someone from our family hired assassins such as the notorious silent rippers to kill him, they have every right to destroy us.
I am well aware of our situation. Patriarch Lin spoke with a deep frown on his face. Are you sure you know?
If you had kept an eye on the family properly, none of this would have happened.
I went into closed cultivation for 100 years and you messed everything up. How will I ever be able to enter closed cultivation with a peace of mind now, you useless son? I'm really sorry, father. I have let you down.
No. You let the Lin family down. Lin Chunhua shouted.
I'm going to do my own investigations because I cannot trust you to handle this by yourself.
Over the next several hours, the Lin family would become incredibly busy with people scrambling around like ants. Meanwhile, news of what happened outside the Lin family spread throughout the city like wildfire, shocking everyone.
What? The Lin family hired the silent rippers to assassinate the Tian family? So the rumors were true. They must have tried to silence the Tian family. Heavens! How low the Lin family has fallen.
The situation with the Lin family had gotten so bad that the other legacy families had sent people to speak with Patriarch Lin. However, they were all turned away without any explanations.
What the hell is the Lin family doing?
We're in the middle of something important and they're messing around with assassins? Unbelievable. This will surely affect our reputation as well.
The other legacy families were not happy about the situation, especially since they will definitely be dragged into such a scandal. Moreover, they were in the middle of hunting a wanted criminal, and this would only make things more difficult for everyone. However, there was nothing they could do about it except wait for the Lin family to fix it. Meanwhile, after leaving the Lin family, Yuan and Tian Yenyu made their way back to the Tian family. But shortly before they arrived, another person would arrive at the Tian family. Mistress! What are you doing here? Old Zhou was shocked to see her. Is it true that my daughter started something with the Lin family? Tian Suyin asked in a nervous manner. Starting something? We're far past that point. Tian Xianzu's voice suddenly resounded. You! What do you mean by those words? What happened? Where's Yenyu right now? Tian Suyin glared at her husband with an enraged look on her face. What happened, you ask? The Lin family had hired the Silent Rippers to silence us.
As for Yenyu, she's currently at the Lin family with A.P. Tian Xianzu suddenly felt something slap him across his face. What in heaven's name are you doing?
I left Yenyu in your care because I trusted that you would protect her.
And why the hell are you so calm about this?
Tian Xianzu didn't utter a single word and accepted the slap, as he felt that he deserved it for not being able to stop Tian Yenyu from going to war with the Lin family.
And right as he prepared to explain the whole situation to his wife, another voice resounded, Mother? What are you doing here?
It was Tian Yenyu, and she just returned with Yuan.
Why Yenyu? Are you okay? Did the Lin family do anything to you? Tian Suyin rushed over to her daughter. That's her mother, huh? Yuan looked at the beautiful woman standing before Tian Yenyu.
Not only did Tian Yenyu resemble her mother, but they looked almost like sisters, with the mother being several years older.
I'm fine, mother. What about you? Did something happen at the sect? Why did you suddenly return? I returned because of you. I have warned you many times to not mess with the Lin family, and what do you do when I leave you alone for a bit? You mess with the Lin family.
Now they're sending the most notorious assassins in the third heaven, the Silent Rippers, to our residence.
We need to get you out of here before they kill you. Tian Yenyu took a step back and quickly said, calm down, mother.
The situation isn't as dire as you think, really.
Chapter 1085 Familiar Sword Technique. Isn't that dire? Are you seriously saving that? We are currently being hunted by the Silent Rippers.
Not even my sect can protect us from them.
And what about the Lin family?
They will surely try to do something as well.
Tian Suyin exclaimed with a heated expression on her face.
Just take a moment to calm down while I explain.
Tian Yenyu sighed, and she continued, First of all, the Silent Rippers are no longer a threat to us.
They've already been dealt with, and their leader was even captured.
What? Tian Suyin's eyes widened with shock upon hearing this information. The notorious Silent Rippers have been dealt with?
Their leader was captured?
By whom? Who could possibly be strong enough to do such a thing? And before Tian Suyin could ask these questions, Tian Yenyu pointed at the handsome young man standing behind her and spoke, Meet Xiao Yang. He's the one who helped us deal with the Silent Rippers. Tian Suyin turned to look at Yuan.
Although she had noticed his presence, she didn't even bother looking at him, as she had more important things to care about. However, when she saw Yuan's handsome face, she became quite startled, mostly because Yuan looked almost like her daughter.
Although neither Tian Yenyu nor Tian Xianzu noticed the similarities, Tian Suyin noticed it at glance. Who are you? Tian Suyin asked him after snapping out of her daze. My name is Xian Yang, and I came here to repay a debt my ancestors owed to your ancestors.
Yuan said with a friendly smile on his face. Tian Suyin immediately frowned, as she didn't buy his excuse, and he simply looked too suspicious, especially his appearance.
Are you the reason my Tian family got entangled with the Lin family and the Silent Rippers?
Tian Suyin had a feeling this was the situation and asked him for confirmation. The Tian family and the Lin family had already been tangled with each other even before my arrival.
I am simply trying to untangle it. Really? Tian Suyin spoke with a doubtful look on her face. How do I know that you weren't sent here by the Lin family?
We've been handling our situation with the Lin family just fine before your help, but look at how things turned out when you showed up.
How things turned out? Yuan raised an eyebrow.
And he continued, if you're talking about the Silent Rippers, I have already taken care of them, and the leader is being interrogated by the Lin family. As for the Lin family themselves, they have agreed to find the person responsible for hiring the Silent Rippers.
You dare to tell me that you, a mere spirit king, managed to deal with the Silent Rippers that are known to have multiple spirit kings? Your farts are getting louder and louder, brat. The frown on Tian Suyin's face burrowed even deeper. He's telling the truth. Tian Xianzu suddenly spoke.
I watched him do it, after all.
That's right. Xiao Yang is extremely powerful and talented. He can handle multiple spirit kings by himself. Tian Yanyu jumped in to defend Yuan. Tian Suyin turned silent for a good moment after hearing her husband and daughter's words.
If you're truly as powerful as they claim, I want to see it for myself.
You want to spar with me? Yuan raised an eyebrow. Yes.
I have to confirm for myself your strength, after all.
I don't suggest doing that, mother. Xiao Yang. He's really powerful. Tian Yanyu said with a worried look on her face. Shut up. I don't care if he's the strongest cultivator in the 9 heavens. Unless I see it for myself, I won't believe it. If that's what it will take for you to calm down. Yuan nodded with a confident look on his face.
They entered the courtyard shortly after. I don't want to damage my own home, so let's put up a defensive array first.
Tian Suyin said. You're an array master? Yuan asked. No, I am. Tian Xianzu suddenly said. I'm a level 4 array master, he continued. Really? I'm actually a level 2 array master myself. Yuan smiled. Seriously? You're also an array master? Is there anything you can't do? Tian Yanyu asked with a baffled look on her face.
Sometime later, Tian Xianzu covered the courtyard in a defensive array. However, since he created it in a hurry, the defensive array wasn't anything impressive and actually quite fragile. When Yuan saw this, he said, Are you sure this is enough?
It won't last even a single attack. It'll be fine. It's not like we're trying to kill each other. Tian Suyin nodded. Me. Then whenever you're ready. I won't be using any spiritual techniques to make this fair.
Yuan said with a calm smile.
Tian Suyin's eyebrows twitched slightly upon hearing his words that sounded like he was underestimating her.
And without warning, she rushed at him with her fists ready to strike. Seeing this, Yuan began dodging her strikes, making it seem as though they were dancing around the courtyard. Eventually, Tian Suyin retrieved her sword and started attacking Yuan with even more intensity. Tian Suyin did not want to use any techniques at first since she didn't want to damage her home, but she was feeling irritated about the fact that she couldn't even land a single strike on a junior like Yuan, so she started unleashing sword techniques at him.
These sword techniques.
For some reason, Yuan could feel a sense of familiarity from Tian Suyin's sword techniques even though this is his first time seeing it, and the more he looked at it the stronger this feeling got. It quickly got to the point where he was no longer focused on the fight but the sword techniques instead.
Why am I feeling this sense of familiarity from her sword techniques? Is it related to one of my past lives? He couldn't help but ponder about this possibility. Chapter 1086 Lin Family's Gathering. Are you mocking me?
Tian Suyin suddenly stopped moving and shouted at Yuan, who had been completely focused on her sword techniques.
Ha! What are you talking about? He snapped out of his daze and asked. You've been doing nothing but avoid me. Are we playing tag or are we fighting? She pointed her sword at him, and on her face was an angry frown. Oh, sorry. I was distracted by something, Yuan said with an apologetic smile on his face. And he asked, by the way, before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where did you learn that sword technique? If you beat me, I will tell you. Tian Suyin sneered. Very well. Yuan gave Tian Suyin a moment to prepare herself.
Once it seemed like she was ready, Yuan suddenly disappeared from Tian Suyin's vision even though she had been staring at him without blinking, almost like he'd disappeared into thin air. She suddenly felt a presence appear behind her, and she instinctively turned around while swinging her sword. Yuan calmly moved his hand behind her elbow, preventing her from turning around any further, and with his other hand, he gave her one good punch on the side of her stomach.
Ah! Tian Suyin released a painful cry before falling to her knees.
Even though it seemed like an ordinary punch, the punch actually shook the spiritual energy in Tian Suyin's dantian like a shockwave, forcing her body to feel weak, temporarily losing all of her strength.
I think the disparity between you and I should be quite clear now, Yuan said to her as he lowered his fist, letting them rest beside him. Tian Suyin gritted her teeth in frustration. She was a sect elder of a relatively strong sect, yet she couldn't even touch a single hair on Yuan's body, who was many years younger than her. And to make matters worse, she wielded a weapon and used techniques while Yuan confronted her with his bare hands. Although Tian Suyin couldn't fully grasp Yuan's strength from their light spar, one thing was clear, and that Yuan was a formidable individual. What did I tell you, mother? Xiao Yang is the real deal. And what he showed you just now isn't even a small fraction of his full strength. Tian Yenyu shook her head at her mother.
To be fair, your mother didn't use her full strength either.
Well, I think she just wanted to understand my strength even if it's a little, Yuan said, hoping it'd make Tian Suyin feel better.
Once the spiritual energy inside her body stabilized, Tian Suyin stood up and spoke in a low voice, sort of indomitable will. That's the name of the sword technique I used, and it's a technique from the Jade Sword Manor.
Although it's a relatively weak sword technique, I learned it because I liked its name. Sword of Indomitable Will. Yuan mumbled this name in a low voice. I am actually a disciple of this sect, and I also know the sword technique, by the way, Tian Yenyu suddenly said. Is that so? After pondering for a moment, he asked, do you mind if I visit the Jade Sword Manor? Why would you want to do that? Tian Yenyu asked. I want to confirm something, he said, giving a vague answer. Tian Yenyu realized this, so she didn't ask further. No,
Tian Suyin suddenly said, and she continued, until you settle your business with the Lin family and this situation, you're not going anywhere. I don't want you bringing trouble into our sect. Yuan nodded, don't worry, it'll all be settled in a few days.
Anyways, I'm going to rest for a bit. If you need me, you know where to find me, Yuan said to them before going back to his room. Once Yuan was gone, Tian Suyin turned to look at Tian Yenyu and said with a solemn face, you're going to tell me everything from the beginning. And don't you dare miss even the slightest detail. I understand.
Thus, the Tian family went to another room for their meeting. Meanwhile, at the Lin family, all of its members had been gathered in one place under Patriarch Lin's instructions. I wonder what happened. I can't even recall the last time Father gathered all of us in such a manner. A young lady mumbled out loud to the others around her. It probably has something to do with what happened very recently. Another person said. What happened? According to what my servant told me, some crazy bastard kicked down our Lin family's front gate and even beat many of our guards. What?
Which madman would dare to do such a thing? Even if that did happen, why would the patriarch summon all of us? Me.
I heard that Ancestor Lin also came out of his seclusion recently.
The ancestor? Does this mean he's finally break through to the Spirit Emperor realm? Silence.
A loud voice suddenly resounded, instantly hushing the room. Then, the sound of footsteps resounded.
A few moments later, Patriarch Lin appeared before them.
Patriarch Lin swept his gaze at the tens of thousands of people in front of him and said in a clear voice, "I want the names of those who could not make it today on my desk by tonight."
Yes. An old man immediately responded in a loud voice.
After a moment of silence, Patriarch Lin continued, "I have gathered all of you here today for two reasons. First of all, the upper heavens have decided to send people down here to look for the sinner that had received heaven's death sentence, and it's not just a few people. According to the information I was given by the Lin family in the upper heavens, thousands of people from all sorts of terrifying backgrounds that far surpasses our Lin families will be sent down here in a month or so." Everyone there expressed great shock after hearing this information, as this was an unprecedented event that could shake up the entire nine heavens.
Chapter 1087 Lin Family's Gathering, 2.
Now this shouldn't even need to be said, but I will still say it just in case.
These people coming from the upper heavens are not to be trifled with. Many of them come from backgrounds that could easily wipe out our Lin family and get off scot-free. Patriarch Lin said with a serious expression on his face.
If you encounter one of these people, you will give them your utmost respect and treat them as if they are your own ancestors. Most of them will have their cultivation suppressed to peak Spirit King, and they will all be wearing a special badge on their clothes that will distinguish them from the others. Patriarch Lin proceeded to show them a golden badge that was shaped into the word heaven, which could also be read as Tian. While I said that these people will come down in a month, in reality, some of them could have already made it down here for all we know. Unbeknownst to the Lin family, Patriarch Lin had received the news about the people from the upper heaven literally right before he showed up to the gathering, so he was just as surprised as everyone there. And in his mind, the young man from the celestial overlords was part of this expedition team. How fucking unlucky for our Lin family to offend someone from the upper heaven right before the news even spread.
He sighed inwardly.
Now then, let's move on to our second topic and the main reason why I gathered all of you here today.
Patriarch Lin spoke a moment later. The Lin family was baffled after hearing this, and they all wondered what could be even more important than the upper heavens sending people to their small world. A scary expression suddenly appeared on Patriarch Lin's face, and his eyes emanated with killing intent. As some of you have probably heard by now, there is a rumor going around that claims our Lin family had hired the Silent Rippers to mess with the Tian family. What? Such a thing happened? My God.
The people there were shocked to hear this, as if such a rumor was true. This could very well be a death sentence for whoever caused this trouble. Meanwhile, within the crowd was Lin Minghai and Steward Jean, and both of them were sweating profusely at this moment. The two of them exchanged worried glances with each other.
If Patriarch Lin learns the truth, not even the heavens would know of the aftermath. I really hope that you'd erased all evidence that could indicate us as the culprits.
Lin Minghai stared at Steward Jean in the eyes. Steward Jean returned the stare with a confident look in his eyes. "Don't worry, young master, there's no way they know that we were responsible." Patriarch Lin's voice resounded again. "To tell you the truth, I already know the culprits behind this incident."
What?
Lin Minghai and Steward Jean snapped their heads to look at Patriarch Lin with looks of disbelief on their faces.
"Bring him in!"
Patriarch Lin suddenly shouted. A few moments later, two Peak Spirit King experts approached Patriarch Lin while pulling on a chain that was restricting a heavily injured individual. This person was so badly beaten that his entire body was covered in bruises. It was clear as day that this individual had been tortured to a great extent, but nobody there said a word about it.
"Do you know who this man is?" Patriarch Lin asked them.
The Lin family quickly shook their heads.
"What if I told you that his name is Zhang Shichai? Do you recognize him now?" Zhan Shichai? Isn't that the leader of the Silent Ripper's name? I have heard it before. Someone there exclaimed. Indeed, this person is the leader of the Silent Rippers, or should I say was.
Patriarch Lin confirmed, sending another wave of shock throughout the Lin family.
Me.
Patriarch Lin looked at the pitiful-looking Zhan Shichai and smiled. No matter how strong you think you are, you will never be able to beat someone from the upper heavens, as we're akin to ants before their eyes.
Patriarch Lin's words implied several things.
1. That Zhan Shichai was beaten by someone from the upper heavens.
2. That the Silent Rippers are no longer in operation. And lastly, that people from the upper heavens are already in the third heaven.
Not everyone noticed these implications, but those that did were greatly shocked. Although it took some effort, I was able to extract a lot of information from Zhan Shichai, the former leader of the Silent Rippers, including the names of the people who hired them. However, I will give the culprits a chance to step forward and admit their mistakes.
If you do so, I will lessen the punishment.
Patriarch Lin spoke in a loud and clear voice, but he had just spoken 2 lies just now. First of all, no matter how much they tortured Zhan Shichai, they were unable to extract any information from him.
Secondly, they did not know the culprits behind this whole fiasco. In other words, Patriarch Lin was bluffing to trick the culprits into revealing themselves.
This was a cheap and sly tactic, but it was effective and Patriarch Lin had no time to spare.
After all, the quicker he deals with this situation, the more likely that Yuan wouldn't wipe the Lin family from the face of this world. Lin Minghai and Steward Jean looked at each other again, and on their faces showed absolute despair and desperation.
Steward Jean, you fucking useless bastard. Lin Minghai cried inwardly, silently cursing his most reliable servant, something he has never done before.
What the hell is happening?
Even if that Xiaoyang had help from the Tian family, they shouldn't have the capability to defeat the Silent Rippers, much less capture their leader, Zhan Shichai. Steward Jean had a hysterical look on his face from being unable to comprehend the situation, and he felt so weak that he was on the verge of collapsing on the spot.
After a moment of silence, Patriarch Lin spoke in a booming voice, 30 seconds.
The ones responsible for putting our Lin family in this situation have 30 seconds to get up here and admit to their crimes.
If you do so, we will spare you from the death penalty. The death penalty?
Lin Minghai cried inwardly. He could have never expected things to get out of control so quickly, nor could he have anticipated such a severe punishment.
That bastard came from the upper heavens? No wonder why he dares to act so brazenly.
Steward Jean gritted his teeth in fear. However, he wasn't completely hopeless, as he had made some preparations just in case this kind of situation would happen.
10 seconds left.
Patriarch Lin's voice rippled in the room, causing the walls to tremble slightly.
5, 4, 3. I did it. It was me. I was the one who hired the Silent Rippers.
A clear voice suddenly resounded, and everyone in the room turned to look at the person who just spoke. This person began making his way towards the front of the room. Once he was before Patriarch Lin, the middle-aged man kneeled and kissed the floor with his forehead.
This lowly servant is responsible for the mess.
Please punish me as you see fit, Patriarch.
Me.
Patriarch Lin narrowed his eyes at the middle-aged man before him with a pondering face.
A moment of silence later, he spoke, I don't recognize you. Identify yourself.
It wasn't weird for Patriarch Lin to not recognize the face of every servant in the Lin family due to the sheer number of them.
This lowly servant is called Wu Jie.
I have been a servant of the Lin family for 15 years now.
Why did you hire the Silent Rippers? Because it felt like the right thing to do, especially after their attempt to smear the Lin family's name and reputation by associating us with the bandits.
Wu Jie explained in a calm voice.
Your foolish actions have done far more damage than any rumors could. Patriarch Lin shook his head.
Patriarch Lin actually could tell by the way Wu Jie acted that he wasn't the true culprit, but he couldn't care less and only wanted someone to take the fall and face Yuan's wrath, and the Lin family wouldn't lose out on anything by losing a single servant.
Follow me. Patriarch Lin turned around and walked out of the room, followed by Wu Jie.
Once Patriarch Lin was gone and the atmosphere returned to normal, the others could finally take a breather.
Lin Minghai immediately approached Steward Jean and asked him in a low voice, What the hell just happened? I will explain it later.
Let's go elsewhere first, young master.
All right. They left the room and went somewhere more private. Who was that Wu Jie? Why did he admit to something he did not commit? Lin Minghai asked with a puzzled look on his face.
A cold smile appeared on Steward Jin's face as he spoke, a lowly servant.
It's not hard to make them do things.
Lin Minghai stared at Steward Jin in a dazed manner for a moment before he burst out laughing. You're evil, but I really appreciate what you've done for us, Steward Jin.
I don't even want to imagine what could have happened to us if you didn't do such a thing.
I will do anything to keep you safe, young master. Steward Jin continued to smile. And for the next few days, Patriarch Lin would keep Wu Jia locked up in their private prison until the day Yuan returned to their household.
A few days later. Alright, it's about time I check up on the Lin family. You don't have to come with me if you don't want to, Yuan said to Tian Yenyu as he walked to their front gate. I am coming with you. Tian Yenyu insisted with a stern-looking expression on her face.
I am also coming with you, and this is not up for debate,
Tian Suyin suddenly said. If my daughter and wife are going, I can't stay behind now, can I? Tian Xianzu sighed. Yuan smiled. The more the merrier.
Thus, Yuan and the entire Tian family began making their way to the Lin family, attracting much attention from the pedestrians they passed as they got closer to their destination. News of the Tian family confronting the Lin family quickly began spreading throughout the entire city like wildfire. When the other legacy families heard the news, they began paying more attention to the situation. Although the Tian family was too small to attract their interest, they wanted to see how the Lin family was going to handle the situation, as the recent rumors have really tanked their reputation within the city. When Yuan and the Tian family arrived at the Lin family's front gate, the Lin family was already waiting for them outside. Welcome back to our humble estate, young master. Lin Chunhua greeted him with a bright smile.
Let's cut to the chase. Have you found the person who is responsible? Yuan asked. Tian Suyin and Tian Xianzu were on the verge of a nervous breakdown when they saw how Yuan behaved before the Lin family.
Lin Chunhua turned to look at Patriarch Lin, who nodded and said, We have found the man responsible for hiring the Silent Rippers. Before we punish him, we'd like to give you the chance to do so. Let's go somewhere more private, shall we? Lin Chunhua asked him. Sure. Yuan nodded. They proceeded to enter the Lin family's estate. Patriarch Lin brought Yuan and the Tian family to their largest guest room and said to them, I have already requested for the perpetrator to be transported here. Please give us a few minutes. I understand. Yuan nodded. Tian Xianzu and Tian Suyin almost couldn't believe what they were witnessing right now. Am I dreaming or something? There's no way the Lin family is acting this respectful to us. No, to him. Tian Suyin glanced at Yuan with a pondering gaze. I knew he was someone special, but to think he was this special. Tian Xianzu swallowed nervously as he sat in the Lin family's guest room. Both Tian Xianzu and Tian Suyin held their breaths as they waited for the Lin family to bring in the culprit. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man with a somewhat blank look on his face was escorted into the room while his hands and legs were chained, and he appeared to have been beaten quite badly. This servant is Wu Jia, and he claimed responsibility for hiring the Silent Rippers. His reason being the recent rumors that have been spreading about our Lin family. In other words, he wanted revenge. Patriarch Lin said. Yuan narrowed his eyes at Wu Jia, causing him to tremble. Xiao Yang. I don't think he's the culprit. Tian Yenyu whispered in his ears. Even she could tell at glance that this servant wasn't responsible for it.
Take a seat.
Yuan gestured for Wu Jie to sit before them. Wu Jie didn't dare to get comfortable, but Lin Chunhua insisted, if the young master tells you to take a seat, you will take a seat. Wu Jie quickly nodded his head and walked to the chair in small steps.
Me.
Once he was seated, Yuan retrieved the Grail of Truth and placed it on the table.
I will now ask you several questions, and you will answer them truthfully. Yuan said to him. Wu Jie nodded. Is your name Wu Jie? Yuan asked a moment later.
Yes. The Grail of Truth remained still.
Did Patriarch Lin or Ancestor Lin force you to be here and play the role of culprit? And no. They did not.
Wu Jie said in a nervous voice.
Seeing no reaction from the Grail of Truth, Yuan continued, Are you really the person responsible for hiring the Silent Rippers? Yes, I am responsible.
Wu Jie spoke with a somewhat defeated look on his face.
The Grail of Truth immediately pulsated with light. Yuan smiled and said, You're lying to me.
Wu Jie's eyes widened with shock, and he roared, And no.
I am not lying. I swear that I am responsible. I was the one who hired the Silent Rippers to attack the Tian family.
The light coming from the Grail of Truth only became brighter as Wu Jie lied more. What is the meaning of Th? Lin Chunhua tried to question Wu Jie, but Yuan stopped him with a simple gesture.
Please, allow me to ask him the questions. All right.
Lin Chunhua stepped back and began glaring at Patriarch Lin with a threatening glare, causing him to swallow nervously.
Why are you lying? Why would you claim responsibility for something you didn't do? Who are you trying to cover for?
Yuan asked Wu Jie, who could only silently shake his head now because he knew that his lies would be exposed if he uttered even a single word. Either you're so incredibly loyal to the person you're trying to protect that you'd be willing to sacrifice your life for them, or you're being forced to do so.
Which is it? Yuan asked. Please. I am really responsible, you have to believe me.
Wu Jie spoke in a low voice, sounding as though he was on the verge of crying.
Yuan turned to look at Lin Chunhua and spoke in a cold voice, What is the meaning of this? Do you think I am foolish enough to believe this farce, or did you expect me to just accept it as it is? Neither. Lin Chunhua roared.
He approached Wu Jie and continued, I will swear upon my surname and soul that I will protect you from whoever you're trying to protect.
Tell us, why are you lying? I will also guarantee your safety. Patriarch Lin suddenly added.
Upon hearing these words, Wu Jie immediately broke out in tears and bawled his eyes out.
My family was taken from me. My wife and my daughter are taken as hostages. They told me that if I don't take the blame, they would sell my wife and daughter to the worst brothels in the city. Wu Jie cried out loud. Lin Chunhua gritted his teeth in anger upon hearing this information. Which bastard within the Lin family dares to do something so vile? Tell me.
He roared, causing the entire room to shake.
Steward Jean.
Wu Jie blurted this name out loud, feeling as though a mountain had been lifted from his chest.
What? Patriarch Lin exclaimed. Who is this Steward Jean? I don't recognize this name. Lin Chunhua immediately asked for more information. Steward Jean is one of our most loyal servants. He's currently serving Lin Minghai, my son.
Patriarch Lin muttered in a low voice. There was no way he could hide this information since everyone knew about it. If he tried to hide it from Lin Chunhua, it would immediately be exposed as a lie, and he would experience his father's wrath.
Don't tell me your son.
Lin Chunhua's body trembled in anger.
Wait. He only said Steward Jin's name.
While it's true that he works directly for my son, there's no evidence that suggests my son is part of this farce.
For all we know, Wu Jie could be lying about this whole thing. Patriarch Lin exclaimed.
Then why don't we speak with this Steward Jean and see for ourselves what he has to say about this situation?
Yuan suddenly said. And he continued, also, he isn't lying. Yuan suddenly pointed at the chains restricting Wu Jia. He released some of his sword chi the following moment, cutting the chains apart. It would be in the Lin family's best interest to compensate this man for his troubles. Lin Chunhua nodded. I will personally compensate him once all of this is over. You have my word. Then let's call for the steward Jean, shall we? Yuan smiled. Patriarch Lin immediately summoned Steward Jean to their room. Sometime later, a man with a naturally cunning face entered the room, his entire body already drenched in sweat. Greetings, Patriarch Lin. Save your breath. You'll need it. Patriarch Lin interrupted with a cold expression on his face. Steward Jean swallowed nervously before turning to look inside the room, and that was when he noticed an exhausted-looking man sitting in the middle of the room. Steward Jean immediately recognized this man to be the one he forced to take the blame for the incident, and his body began squeezing out every ounce of sweat it contained once he realized the situation. What's wrong, Steward Jean? Do you recognize this servant? Lin Chunhua pretended to be ignorant and asked. Why yes. He's one of many servants in the Lin family. Steward Jean responded in a shaky voice. Is that all? What else can you tell me about him? Patriarch Lin continued to ask. However, Steward Jean couldn't utter another word out of his mouth. Let's stop this pointless chatter and get straight to the point. Wu Jia, is this man, Steward Jean, the individual who forced you to take the blame? Lin Chunhua suddenly said. Me. Wu Jia glanced at Steward Jean, seemingly hesitant to respond. Don't forget, both you and your family have our full support. Patriarch Lin reminded him. Wu Jia nodded, and after taking a deep breath, he spoke, yes, he is the man who threatened my family. That's a load of bullshit. Steward Jean subconsciously roared out loud. When he realized what he'd just done, he quickly followed it up, Patriarch. Ancestor. That man is speaking nonsense. I never threatened him. I am being framed. And before they could respond, Steward Jean pointed at Wu Jia and continued, you claim that I'd threatened your family, but what proof do you have to back that claim? How dare you try and frame me? A mere servant. The room became dead silent. A calm voice broke the silence a moment later. There is only one proof we need. What? Steward Jean shifted his gaze to the handsome young man sitting on the other side of Wu Jia. Yuan pointed at the grail of truth resting on the table and continued, he's not lying, and that is all I need to know that you're guilty. Now tell me, are you solely responsible for this mess, or are there others? Steward Jean didn't dare to speak, as he didn't want to drag his master to hell with him. However, Lin Chunhua wasn't having any of this, and he grabbed Steward Jean by the neck before lifting him into the air. Speak! Who else is responsible? And nobody. I am the only one responsible. He muttered. The grail of truth immediately began pulsating with light. When Lin Chunhua saw this, his expression turned cold, and he suddenly tossed Steward Jean across the room. The room shook slightly when Steward Jin's body slammed into the wall, leaving behind a large crack on it. Patriarch Lin approached Steward Jean and spoke in a low voice, if you tell us the truth, I might spare you the death penalty. Feeling as though a dim light had appeared in his seemingly pitch-black situation, Steward Jean became hopeful that he might survive this ordeal. On the other hand, if you don't, I will personally torture you for 100 years. Lin Chunhua suddenly said. Steward Jin's body trembled in fear upon hearing such horrifying words, and he subconsciously muttered out loud, Minghai. Young Master Lin Minghai is also responsible. The temperature in the room suddenly dropped significantly, and Patriarch Lin mumbled in a low voice, Minghai. He's also responsible for this? Patriarch Lin didn't want to believe that his son was involved with the Silent Rippers, but somewhere deep within him believed otherwise. Lin Minghai. Although I don't recognize this name, Since he has the Lin family's surname, is he a direct descendant?
Lin Chunhua asked his son, who nodded in a stiff manner.
Yes. He's my son.
After a moment of silence, Lin Chunhua spoke, I don't care if he's your son or your wife.
If he's responsible, he will take responsibility. Bring him here.
Patriarch Lin had no choice but to summon Lin Minghai to the room.
Several minutes later, Lin Minghai entered the room. Greetings. A clear sound rippled in the room almost immediately after Lin Minghai opened his mouth.
Lin Minghai looked at his father with a look of disbelief on his face after realizing that he'd just been slapped in the face.
Father. Lin Minghai mumbled. Absolutely useless. You're a disgrace to the entire family. Patriarch Lin uttered in a cold and disdaining voice.
It was at this moment Lin Minghai noticed the other figures in the room, and when he saw the expression on Steward Jin's face, he instantly realized his situation.
Wait. I can explain. So you're not even going to deny it?
Lin Chunhua said. Lin Minghai was speechless. If Steward Jin had given him up, there was no way he could talk his way out of this. The only thing he could do was hope that they wouldn't kill him because of the Lin family's blood that is currently running through his veins. This was all Steward Jin's idea.
I merely followed it.
No matter if you came up with the idea yourself or you're simply going along with it, you're just as guilty. Lin Chunhua sneered. He turned to look at Patriarch Li and continued, You have assured the young master that you will punish the culprit with death regardless of their identity, and your son is no exception. But since he is your son, I will allow you the courtesy to end his life.
As for you.
Lin Chunhua suddenly looked at Steward Jin.
Whoosh!
Before Steward Jin could even open his mouth, Lin Chunhua tossed his sword that was aimed directly at Steward Jin's heart, pinning him into the wall and killing him instantly. Lin Minghai fell on his buttocks when he saw this, and he even pissed his own pants.
Please have mercy, father.
Lin Minghai crawled to Patriarch Lin's feet and began begging for his life.
You are pleading to the wrong person for mercy.
Patriarch Lin kicked his feet, sending Lin Minghai flying. Lin Minghai immediately stood back up and rushed to Tian Yinyu's side before kneeling before her with his face full of tears and snot.
Please. Have mercy, Lady Tian. I was wrong. I promise that I will never bother you again if you spare my life.
Tian Yinyu remained seated on the couch with a calm expression on her face as she silently watched Lin Minghai plead for his life with his knees kissing the floor. This was a scene that she'd seen multiple times in her dreams, but she never imagined that it could become a reality. However, as much as she wanted to kill him, she wasn't sure if that was a good decision, especially since the Lin family could hold a grudge against her family for killing Lin Minghai. She turned to look at her family for advice. Unfortunately, both her parents were still frozen stiff from fear because of their situation. Tian Yinyu proceeded to shift her attention to Yuan, who calmly smiled before speaking, Just speak your heart's desire.
No matter your decision, I will protect you and your family.
When she saw the calmness on Yuan's face, Tian Yinyu also called down.
Me. Okay.
She nodded before turning to look at Lin Minghai, whose face was filled with tears and snot. You have been a thorn in my life for many years now, and I cannot count the amount of times that I wanted to kill you with my own hands. However, I lacked both the power and courage. After taking a deep breath, she continued, But things are different now. A cold light flickered within her gaze, and she stood up before facing Lin Minghai. I wanted to kill you when you tried to bully me into submission.
I wanted to kill you when you messed with my family.
I have been wanting to pierce your neck with my sword for many years now, and now that I have the chance, it wouldn't make sense for me to refuse.
Tian Yinyu retrieved her sword from her spatial ring. Hi!
Lin Minghai fell on his buttocks again, and he started kicking his feet at the floor, pushing himself away from Tian Yinyu.
Father! Are you really going to let her kill me? I am a descendant of the Lin family. I am your son. You must save me.
Lin Minghai turned to look at Patriarch Lin for help, but his face froze when he saw that Patriarch Lin wasn't even looking at him.
In fact, Patriarch Lin appeared to be ignoring him on purpose.
Seeing this, Lin Minghai knew that his fate was sealed and that he was doomed.
Please, Lady Tian, spare my insignificant. Whoosh!
Tian Yinyu suddenly took a large step towards Lin Minghai while thrusting her sword at him. Her cold blade penetrated his neck and came out the other end. After skewering Lin Minghai's neck with her sword, Tian Yinyu flicked her arm, decapitating Lin Minghai completely with one swift and decisive movement. Lin Minghai's headless body collapsed on the floor a moment later, and not wanting his blood to dirty the room, Lin Chunhua sealed the fatal injury. Tian Suyin snapped out of her daze after hearing the sound of Lin Minghai's head fall to the ground.
Yan Yu. You?
She was in disbelief, and she feared the Lin family's retribution. The room fell silent once again. Sometime later, Yuan stood up and said to the Lin family, "Thank you for upholding your promise. I will consider this whole situation settled now, and I will not fault the Lin family anymore." Lin Chunhua bowed to him. "We only did what was natural."
"Then we will be leaving now." Yuan proceeded to walk towards the door only to stop at the door. He turned around and continued speaking, "Just a reminder, the Tian family is under my protection. Any harm towards them and I will consider it a personal attack on me. Please be at ease, young master.
The Lin family will not touch the Tian family.
In fact, we will even compensate them for whatever damage we've caused them,"
Lin Chunhua said.
It's okay. We appreciate the offer, but what's done is already done. Let's not dwell on the past and keep moving forward," Tian Xianzu said with a stiff smile on his face.
As enticing as Lin Chunhua's offer was, Tian Xianzu wanted to end all relationships with the Lin family as soon as possible. And as long as nobody deliberately messes with their business, they will eventually recover all of their losses. Yuan and the Tian family left the Lin family shortly after and returned to their own territory. Lin Chunhua turned to look at Wu Jia and said, "You will also forget everything that transpired here today. I promise the Lin family will not touch you or your family for as long as you keep your mouth shut."
"Yes. Please excuse me."
Wu Jia bowed to them before running out of the room.
"Tell the family and others that your son had died in an accident,"
Lin Chunhua said to Patriarch Lin once they were alone.
"I know," Patriarch Lin sighed. "Let today be a lesson. This is what happens when one offends someone from the upper heavens. We're lucky to get away with just 2 dead bodies. If he wanted to, he could have eradicated our entire family." "I know," Patriarch Lin repeated in a spiritless voice. "I will give you some time to rest. We'll talk again in a few days."
Lin Chunhua disappeared from the room shortly after. Later that night, while Lin Chunhua was in his room cultivating and trying to forget about the whole incident, he suddenly sensed a presence appeared in his room like a ghost, forcing him to stop his cultivation.
"Who's there?" he shouted as he snapped his eyes open. However, there was nobody else in the room. Am I being paranoid? He wondered inwardly.
Lin Chunhua closed his eyes and resumed his cultivation shortly after, completely unaware of the figure and old man standing behind him like a ghost.
"At last, I've finally found you, master."
A profound smile appeared on the old man's face as he secretly consumed Lin Chunhua's memories, taking them for himself. After leaving the Lin family's residence, Yuan and the Tian family went straight back to their own residence. None of them spoke a word to each other during the whole journey back, and when they finally returned to their residence, the Tian family could finally take a breather. Tian Yinyu fell on her knees the moment they entered the residence, and she would stare at her hands that had been trembling non-stop since she killed Lin Minghai.
"I still cannot believe it. Did I really kill Lin Minghai with my own hands? Am I actually dreaming? If this is a dream, I do not wish to wake up from it." She sighed inwardly.
Seeing Tian Yenyu on her knees, Yuan approached her and offered her a hand.
Are you okay? He asked.
Tian Yenyu lifted her head to look at him without moving the rest of her body, and she mumbled in a low voice, "Who are you, really?"
Yuan chuckled, "You've asked me that same question so many times that I lost count now. Then allow me to ask you. Just who are you, really? And why are you helping us?"
"I swear, if you give me that same bullshit," Tian Suin said.
"Does it really matter?" Tian Xianzu suddenly interrupted. Me.
Honestly, I don't care about his identity. The only thing that I know is that he'd helped us deal with the Lin family, finally giving our Tian family some peace.
Peace? Tian Suin sneered, "Do you really believe the Lin family will just sit back and act as though nothing had happened today?
We killed one of their direct descendants.
And it was even done inside their own home.
It may not happen tomorrow or even a decade from now, but they will definitely settle this debt one day.
We will deal with it when that day actually comes. For now, let's just relax and take full advantage of this peace," Tian Xianzu said with a bittersweet smile on his face.
I have to agree with father, mother,"
Tian Yenyu suddenly said.
"Lin Minghai would not have stopped until I was groveling at his feet, so our family would have to deal with the Lin family regardless of what happened today.
As for Xiao Yang's true identity,
despite my question just now, I don't really care about that anymore.
While it's true that I am curious, I won't pursue it if he doesn't want to reveal it. As long as he isn't a threat to us, I couldn't care less about his identity."
Tian Yenyu stood back up and glared at Yuan with clear eyes.
"Thank you, Xiao Yang.
Because of you, I was able to turn my dream into a reality and kill Lin Minghai. Now I won't have any more nightmares about him. If there's anything that I can do for you, don't hesitate to ask, as I am now indebted to you."
Yuan shook his head. "No, you don't owe me anything. In the first place, I helped you because of a debt my family owed your family. Then you can consider that debt fully repaid." Tian Yenyu smiled.
"Poof."
Tian Suin snorted, "Now that you no longer owe our family any debt, you may leave." I ignore her.
"You can stay here for as long as you'd like, Xiao Yang,"
Tian Yenyu quickly said. "Thank you.
Then if you don't mind, I would like to stay here for a little longer until I figure out my next steps."
"Didn't you say that you'd like to visit my sect, the Jade Sword Manor? We can do that next," Tian Yenyu recalled. "Alright, when do you plan on bringing me there? We can go back as soon as tomorrow if you want." "Sure." Yuan nodded.
That night, Yuan logged off to notify Meishio and the others about his plans.
"How long do you plan on staying with this family?"
Shu Liuxiang asked him.
"I'm not sure yet, but I will let you know the moment I do. Then I will continue cultivating at the Cultivator's Haven until you return."
"I've made significant progress in my cultivation, so much so that I was going to ask you to go on without me for a while longer."
"Me too," Meishio said. "That's perfectly fine. In fact, if you wish to continue cultivating in seclusion even after I am done with the Tian family, just let me know.
It will benefit you more than just following me around, after all."
"Then it's decided."
"Meishio, let's have a race to see who has the most breakthroughs," Shu Liuxiang suddenly said.
"Sure."
Meishio mumbled with raised eyebrows. Meanwhile, Lin Chunhua was losing his memories without even being aware of it.
"Master is currently being hunted."
The old man sighed inwardly when he realized the situation through Lin Chuanhua's memories. He wasn't worried about the 7 legacy families, but with people coming from the upper heavens was a different story. He won't be able to handle the upper heavens in his current state, but they also don't know the master's identity in this life yet. I must keep it that way for as long as possible.
Looks like I will have to wait a little longer before I can see you again, Master. How troublesome.
The old man subconsciously sighed out loud.
Who?
His subconscious sigh alerted and startled Lin Chunhua, who quickly attacked behind him without even looking. The old man avoided the attack with ease before distancing himself from Lin Chunhua. Lin Chunhua didn't immediately attack the old man again, mostly because he was feeling apprehensive about the whole situation. This old man was able to enter his room and get behind him without alerting him until the accidental sigh, which is more than enough to tell Lin Chunhua that he was dealing with someone he couldn't fathom. "You? Who are you?" he asked after swallowing nervously. The old man smiled and said, "I have many names, but you may call me Vanishing Demon." "Vanishing Demon?" Lin Chunhua forcefully swallowed again. Lin Chunhua felt an intense sense of dread course through his body as he stood before the old man known as the Vanishing Demon. With hundreds of years of experience, he instinctively knew the old man was bad news. Despite being one of the most powerful cultivators in the third heaven, he felt powerless, almost as though he'd gone back to the days when he was just a young and ignorant cultivator who'd just encountered a powerful beast that he had no hopes of defeating by himself. "Vanishing. No, Senior Vanishing Demon, what business do you have with me?" A slight smile appeared on Vanishing Demon's face. "You are a smart one, Lin Chunhua. Despite your status within this realm, you still remember how to be humble. People like you are rare in the upper heavens. If it weren't for this characteristic of yours, the Lin family would have perished." "He knows me?" Lin Chunhua doesn't recall introducing himself, and this was definitely their first meeting. "Anyways, I am here to keep my master safe." Vanishing Demon spoke. "Your master?" Lin Chunhua raised an eyebrow. Who could possibly have someone this powerful under them in this small realm? "Yes, and you've met him already. In fact, he was here just earlier today." "Why you mean that young man?" Me. Yuan's image flashed inside Lin Chuanhua's head. Then he realized something. "Wait. To keep him safe? Why do you need to see me to do that? Are you worried that I might retaliate against him because of what happened today?" "I swear on my surname that I will not do such a thing." Vanishing Demon chuckled. "Retaliate? Even the Celestial Emperor couldn't defeat him, much less the Lin family." "The Celestial Emperor? Just who are you guys?" Lin Chunhua was speechless. "Just a few ambitious individuals trying to do what they think is best for this world." Vanishing Demon smiled. "Anyways, my business here is finished. You will be questioned about me in the near future, but don't worry, you won't remember a thing about our conversation just now, and it will be like our meeting had never even happened." "What do you mean by?" Before Lin Chunhua could even finish his sentence, Vanishing Demon disappeared from his room like a ghost. He stood there with a dazed look on his face. Several moments later, Lin Chunhua snapped out of his daze, and he proceeded to look around the room with a confused expression on his face. "Why am I standing here? I was cultivating just a second ago." He wondered inwardly. He decided to not think too much about it and returned to his cultivation with all of his memories regarding Yuan erased from his memories. However, he still remembered the Tian family, as well as the incident with them, just not the person who was behind it. After leaving Lin Chuanhua's room, Vanishing Demon visited other people within the Lin family, starting with Patriarch Lin. Once he acquired Patriarch Lin's memories, he went on to steal the memories of everyone that knew about Yuan's existence, leaving no stones untouched. Once he cleaned up the entire Lin family, Vanishing Demon did not take a moment to rest and immediately went to his next target, the other legacy families. After spending a few days combing through everyone in the 7 legacy families, Vanishing Demon went to his final destination, the G family. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" The Lord G of this realm was greatly startled when Vanishing Demon suddenly appeared before him like a ghost. "Don't mind me. I think I wandered in here by accident," Vanishing Demon said with a smile. "Do you really expect me to believe such an excuse? Identify yourself." Lord G shouted as he withdrew his weapon and pointed it at Vanishing Demon. Vanishing Demon narrowed his eyes slightly and spoke in a calm yet cold voice. A child such as yourself shouldn't play around with sharp objects. I advise you to put away that toy of yours before you get hurt. I will give you 3 seconds to identify yourself. Lord G ignored Vanishing Demon's words and continued pointing his sword at him. Vanishing Demon shook his head and sighed. You people from the G family are always the same. A vicious light suddenly flickered within Vanishing Demon's eyes. Eh? Lord G turned to look at his right arm after he felt an odd sensation from it, and to his absolute horror, his entire arm had disappeared into thin air along with his weapon. However, he didn't utter a single cry and managed to endure the pain. I've never liked the G family. A bunch of lapdogs for the Celestial Emperor, yet you act as though you rule the 9 heavens. Vanishing Demon sneered in a mocking tone. Fortunately for you, I am in a good mood since I have finally found my master, so I am going to spare your life. You? Who are you? Lord G asked with gritted teeth. Vanishing Demon smiled and responded with a prideful aura around him. Vanishing Demon. Lord G frowned. Vanishing Demon? Never heard of you. Why are you doing this? When did my G family offend someone like you? How about Evil God's Shadow Army? Have you heard of them? What? A look of tremendous terror appeared on Lord G's face after hearing this name. Impossible. The Evil God's Shadow Army is just a legend, one that doesn't even exist in this world. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. After all, you won't remember anything after I am done with you. I won't remember anything. Lord G recalled a certain individual that was frequently mentioned when one spoke about the Evil God's Shadow Army. According to the legend, the Evil God's Shadow Army, which was the evil god's most powerful and secretive force, was managed by a nameless entity that had the ability to steal one's memories. I see. So you're that nameless monster who can steal one's memories. However, that doesn't explain why you're here. Vanishing Demon smiled. There is only one purpose for the Evil God's Shadow Army: to protect the evil god, our master. Now that you have this knowledge, my reason for being here should be obvious to you now. No way. The evil god. He's back? Lord G had a look of disbelief on his face. He has returned, yet not at the same time. However, it will only be a matter of time before he officially returns, and when that happens, the 9 heavens will be his to control. Lord G was speechless. Anyways, I have said enough. Once I am finished here, I will finally reunite with the evil god. Why? Lord G opened his mouth, but he stopped speaking and moving and became dazed before he could even finish uttering his first word. When he snapped out of it, all of his memories of Yuan and his conversation with Vanishing Demon no longer existed. Naturally, this meant that he'd forgotten about heaven's judgment and that he was supposed to find and hunt Yuan. In just a few days, Vanishing Demon had managed to erase Yuan's existence from the 3rd heaven. Now that I've brought you some more time, it's about time we met, Master Tian. Vanishing Demon disappeared into the night after he was finished with the G family. The day after the incident at the Lin family, Yuan left the Tian family with Tian Suyin and Tian Yenyu. Are you sure you want to stay behind? What if the Lin family attacks while we are away? Tian Suyin looked at her husband with a worried expression. Stop being so paranoid. I have a good feeling the Lin family won't bother us. He nodded with a calm smile. Sometime later, they left the residence and went to the nearest city teleporter. Before we arrive at the sect, I want you to remember some rules. Tian Suyin said to Yuan after they exited the teleporter and made their way to the Jade Sword sect. M1, you will not wander the sect alone. 2, you will have someone with you at all times. She turned to look at Tian Yenyu and continued, since you agreed to let him in the sect, he'll be your responsibility. Don't let him out of your sight. I know. Yuan couldn't help but smile. Why do you have to make it sound like I have some ulterior motive for visiting your sect? You don't? Me. I don't.
I don't believe you. Tian Suyin snorted. Yuan casually shrugged. Once they arrived at the sect, Tian Suyin said to Tian Yenyu, don't forget about the upcoming event. There will be a briefing about it tomorrow. I know. Tian Suyin went ahead into the sect and quickly disappeared from their sights. Let's get you checked into the sect as a guest first. Tian Yenyu said to Yuan. Okay. Yuan proceeded to follow her into the sect. Sometime later, they stopped above a large building. This is our administration building. Once we check you in, you'll be given a guest uniform. You'll have to wear this uniform for as long as you are within the sect. Tian Yenyu explained to him as they descended in front of the building. The moment they entered the building, Yuan could feel multiple pairs of eyes staring in their direction. Disciple Yenyu. You're back in the sect, and you're okay. An old man with short white hair rushed over when he noticed them. Hello, Elder Meng. Of course I am fine. Why wouldn't I be? Tian Yenyu showed him a friendly smile. Why wouldn't you be? Elder Meng looked at her with wide eyes. There's a rumor going around that the Lin family has captured you and is holding you prisoner. Did that not happen? I wouldn't be here if I was captured, now would I? I don't know where that rumor came from, but it's not true. That's relieving to hear. Then the rumor about your family starting a fight with the Lin family is also false, right? That's true. However, it's already been settled. That doesn't sound assuring. However, now that you're back in the sect, even the Lin family cannot touch you. We've warned you multiple times to not leave the sect, but alas. Elder Meng shook his head. He then shifted his gaze to the handsome young man standing behind her. Who's this young man? Your boyfriend? Tian Yenyu chuckled, this is Xiao Yang, a guest in my family, and he's also our savior. I brought him here because he wanted to look at our sect. Xiao Yang, this is Elder Meng. He's a close friend of my mother, and he used to be my tutor even before I came to the sect. Tian Yenyu introduced them to each other. She didn't deny it. Elder Meng could only think about how Tian Yenyu had ignored his earlier comment calling Yuan her boyfriend, something she would usually deny on the spot and even get angry about it. Just who is this Xiao Yang? How interesting. He smiled inwardly. Anyways, can you help him with the procedures? Tian Yenyu asked a moment later. Sure thing. Follow me, Xiao Yang. Yuan followed Elder Meng to one of the tables, where he would give some information about himself to the sect. Peak Spirit King? Elder Meng's jaw dropped to the floor when he saw Yuan's cultivation on the paper. He turned to look at Yuan, and sure enough, the aura of a Spirit King was emanating from Yuan's body, but he couldn't tell the exact level. He's not even 20 years old, and he's already a peak Spirit King? Where did such a monster come from, and how come I have never heard of him until today? Elder Meng's trembling hands began sweating as he learned more about Yuan. He was beginning to understand why Tian Yenyu seemed to treat him differently. Sometime later, Elder Meng returned to Yuan with his new uniform. The majority of the uniform was black with a golden sword around his chest area. Here is your guest uniform. Please wear this for as long as you're within the sect. This way, we know that you're a guest. We have a changing room right over there. Elder Meng pointed to the door at the end of the room. I understand. Yuan immediately went to change his clothes. You gave him the honorable guest uniform? Even though you know nothing about him? Tian Yenyu asked Elder Meng when she saw the black uniform in Yuan's hands. Regardless of their identity, if they're a peak spirit king, they deserve no less. Elder Meng said in a serious voice. By the way, where did you find a genius like him? Tian Yenyu smiled and spoke, believe it or not, he's the one who found me. He appeared out of the blue one day and has been helping me and my family since then, he's like a gift from the heavens.
Elder Meng raised his eyebrows at such a suspicious situation.
Are you sure you can trust him? Besides my family, he's the only person I trust unconditionally.
I know it might sound crazy, but I really cannot sense any malice from him.
No matter his reason for helping my family, I am grateful for it.
Yuan came out of the changing room a few minutes later, and when Tian Yenyu saw his new look, her face turned slightly rosy. Naturally, she was unaware of this and only felt a little warmer than usual.
Elder Meng whistled after seeing Yuan in their guest uniform.
Not bad, young man.
But you would look even cooler in our official uniform. How about joining our sect?
With your cultivation, you would immediately become a core disciple or even a high-ranking sect elder if you wish. Yuan smiled at his offer and said, "Thank you for the offer, but I don't plan on staying in this world for too long."
This world. Are you going to challenge the stairway to heaven soon? Something like that. He nodded. I see. What a pity. Tian Yenyu looked at Yuan with a perplexed expression on her face after hearing this. We've just met, yet he's already leaving. She sighed inwardly. Come on, I will show you around the sect,
she said to him a moment later.
All right. Me.
Yuan left the building with Tian Yenyu the next moment, and she would proceed to give him a tour around the Jade Sword Manor. Unlike the sects within the lower heavens, the sects within the third heaven are so vast that flying is required if one wanted to travel around, as most sects are split into hundreds if not thousands of smaller platforms that usually floated above the ground to save space.
This is one of our training grounds.
Our Jade Sword Manor has a total of 20 training grounds. Half of them are available to the outer court and inner court disciples, while the other half are for core disciples and elders. Their first stop was a training ground meant for core disciples. Due to their naturally low numbers, the training ground appeared to be empty at first with only a few disciples training on it, but their sword techniques were so flashy and powerful that if there were more disciples training there, they could accidentally hurt each other. Of course, there were defensive formations to lower the risk of disciples injuring each other, but incidents still happen from time to time.
After watching the disciples for a few moments, Tian Yenyu suddenly spoke, Xiaoyan, want to spar with me for a bit? Yuan looked at her with raised eyebrows, questioning her intentions. Even though I have seen you fight from afar, I still cannot fully grasp your prowess. Perhaps if I exchanged swords with you personally, I might understand you a little better. Yuan smiled and said, Sure, but let's do it later. I want to see more of this sect for now. Okay.
Tian Yenyu was in no rush to spar with him, so she didn't mind waiting a little. They left the training grounds to look at the other places.
This is one of our medicine gardens. We have around 100 of them. Unless you want to get attacked by the guards, don't get too close to it.
Only those with official orders are allowed to step foot on these grounds. Of course, these aren't our most valuable treasures. Those are hidden somewhere within the sect. The medicine garden before them was filled with all sorts of plants that stretched to the horizons, and a few moments after their arrival, Yuan could sense someone watching them from afar. They didn't linger and proceeded to the next area shortly after. Over the several hours, Tian Yenyu would bring Yuan to many different spots within the Jade Sword Manor, but even after spending so many hours, they were not even halfway finished with the tour. Seeing how it was starting to get dark, Tian Yenyu suggested they take a break and eat some food.
Sounds great. Yuan nodded.
Sometime later, they arrived at the Comfort Peak, a place designated for disciples to relax. This is Comfort Peak, where disciples go to relax or have fun when they're feeling tired or simply need to release some stress.
If you seek entertainment, you will find most of them here. The best restaurants in the sect could be found here. What do you feel like eating today? Tian Yenyu asked him. I will let you decide. I'm not a picky eater and I enjoy almost everything. All right. Then I will bring you to my favorite store.
As Tian Yenyu led Yuan through the Comfort Peak, the disciples around them would stop whatever they were doing to stare at them.
Is that senior apprentice sister Tian Yinyu?
There's only one person in this sect with her beauty.
It's definitely Fairy Tian. I thought she was being held captive by the Lin family after starting a fight with them. Who's that young man beside her? He's even wearing the honorary guest uniform. I cannot sense his cultivation. Is he immortal?
The disciples mistook Yuan as immortal since they were too weak to sense his cultivation. Eventually, they arrived at their destination.
Jade Pavilion.
Yuan read the large sign above the restaurant's door in a mumbling voice.
When they entered, a handsome middle-aged man approached them. Welcome back to the Jade Pavilion, Disciple Tian. We've missed your presence dearly. It's been a while, Li Ming.
As a regular of this restaurant, Tian Yinyu knew the names of every worker there, and this included even the janitors.
Is my regular spot available?
Of course.
It is always available for you, Disciple Tian.
I will need another chair since I have a guest with me today.
Very well. Please, follow me. They followed Li Ming to a room on the highest floor.
The interior of the room was small and shaped like a rectangle, but it had more than enough room for 2 people. However, the best part of this room was not the interior but the view it provided, as the guests were able to see pretty much the entire place through the balcony. Once they were seated, Li Ming handed them a menu and patiently waited for them to order. Tian Yinyu ordered 2 dishes while Yuan ordered 10 times that amount, which raised eyebrows, but Li Ming didn't say anything and left to prepare their order.
What do you think of our sect? Tian Yinyu asked him once they were alone again. I like the scenery. It's completely different from the ones in lower heaven,
he said with a smile.
Lower heaven. You've been there? Tian Yinyu showed a clear sign of surprise on her face. Yes. I was even a disciple at this sect for a while. Then why don't you become a disciple here for a while as well? Tian Yinyu suddenly asked. I'm not sure what I would do as a disciple here. He shook his head. Well, what did you do in your previous sect?
I become a disciple mostly for the experience. Though, I must admit that the experience I had was limited. I can't say for sure since I've never been to lower heaven, but I would imagine that things are vastly different up here. But what I know for sure is that you'll have more opportunities up here, since we have more resources in the upper heavens.
Me.
After pondering for a moment, Yuan spoke, give me some time to think about it. He immediately didn't refuse her offer. It was true that he didn't truly experience much in the Dragon Essence Temple, and he was interested in what it was like to be a disciple in the third heaven. Tian Yinyu's hands turned into fists underneath the table from trying to hold her excitement. He didn't refuse. There's still a chance. She smiled inwardly. Tian Yinyu continued to ask Yuan about his experience in the lower heaven until their food had arrived. They would stop talking to focus on their food and enjoy the scenery at the same time. Even though it was nighttime, Comfort Peak was still as lively as ever. In fact, it seemed even busier compared to when they first arrived. An hour later, Tian Yinyu stared at Yuan with a baffled look on her face. We finished eating at the same time even though he had 10 times the amount of food I ordered. She swallowed nervously. Tian Yinyu snapped out of her daze a moment later, and she spoke, do you wish to rest for the night, or do you want to continue the tour? Are you tired? We can rest if you want. I am not tired at all. In fact, I probably won't be able to sleep for the next several days since I am still excited about what happened at the Lin family. Yuan smiled, then let's continue our tour. Okay. Core disciples like Tian Yinyu received special treatment, and one of her many privileges was free food, so they left the restaurant without needing to pay. The 2 of them didn't immediately leave Comfort Peak and lingered around for many more hours. This is one of the most popular shops around here. You get to sip on spirit tea for free while relaxing on a spirit calming formation. Want to try it?
Tian Yenyu stopped in front of this large building that was crowded with people outside. Don't mind the queue. Core disciples have their own rooms, so we can go straight inside if you wish. Sure. He nodded. They entered the building a moment later and walked straight to the only empty reception desk there, while every other desk was occupied with disciples. Welcome to the Jade Tea Shop, Disciple Tian. The worker there immediately greeted her. A room for two. Sure thing. The worker handed her a small jade tablet a moment later without asking any questions. After taking the tablet, she brought Yuan to one of the rooms on the top floor. Upon using the jade tablet to open the room that had nothing but two chairs that looked like massage chairs, a table, and a wooden drawer, Tian Yenyu said, "Take a seat." And do you have any preference for your tea? I don't. All right. She went to the drawer and picked out a bag of tea leaves before preparing it with the teapot on the table. Meanwhile, Yuan sat in one of the chairs, and his body immediately sunk into it, almost as though it was made of water and he was being embraced by clouds at the same time. Once the tea was prepared, Tian Yenyu poured 2 cups and handed one of them to Yuan. This tea is made from leaves produced by our own sect. It has a special property that makes you feel as though you're slowly ascending to heaven. After drinking it, lay down and close your eyes. After drinking the cup of tea, Yuan laid back on the chair and closed his eyes. He could immediately feel the effects of the tea, and sure enough, his body felt incredibly relaxed while his consciousness was slowly drifting away. This tranquilizing effect lasted for about 2 hours before it dissipated. There are even stronger teas if you want something longer lasting. Tian Yenyu said to him. I'm satisfied with what I experienced. He smiled. Then let's continue looking around. After wandering the comfort peak for many hours until they were satisfied, they returned to the training grounds. By the time they arrived, it was almost noon. Please go easy on me, Tian Yenyu said to him as she retrieved her sword. And don't go easy on me. Come at me as though you're trying to kill me, Yuan said with a confident smile on his face. Knowing his prowess, Tian Yenyu did not hesitate to treat their spar as though it was a life or death match. Once they were prepared, Tian Yenyu made the first move, using a movement technique to get behind Yuan while swinging her sword at his neck. Whoosh! Her blade struck nothing but air after Yuan dodged it with his own movement technique. The few disciples at the same training ground quickly took notice of their spar, and they all stopped their own training to spectate. It looked like Tian Yenyu had the upper hand at first, but these disciples quickly realized that was not the case. This guy. Who is this guy she's sparring with? Chapter 1097 Nameless Emperor's Tomb. Heavens! I have never seen Disciple Tian being pushed around like this before. That guest, he's strong. The disciples were mesmerized by their fight, and some of them even imagined being in Tian Yenyu's shoes. However, none of them could even imagine defeating Yuan, who seemed invincible at the moment. After 20 minutes of going back and forth, Yuan decided to end things with a sword technique. Vanishing Ghost's Soundless Blade. Yuan's sword disappeared for a split second, and Tian Yenyu suddenly sensed a wave of sword chi fly past her, narrowly missing her. When she sensed Yuan's sword chi, her life flashed before her eyes for a second before she realized that she was still alive. The disciples spectating the fight also felt as though their life was suddenly in peril when they felt the sword chi despite their distance, with some of them even falling on their buttocks. Tian Yenyu fell to her knees afterward, her body soaked in cold sweat. What was that just now? She asked herself inwardly. Me. This was her first time experiencing an ancient rank sword technique, so her reaction was normal. Are you okay? Yuan approached her after putting away his sword. Tian Yenyu didn't immediately respond. Instead, she turned her head to look beside her, and to her horror, there was a deep cut in the floor that stretched for hundreds of meters, and the cut itself was many meters deep, almost as if it had been sliced by a massive sword the size of a building. Looks like I am still underestimating you.
She mumbled in a low voice after forcefully swallowing her saliva that was stuck in her throat.
If he'd used this kind of power while fighting the Silent Rippers, he would have erased the Tian family's residence along with the assassins. Is this his true power, or is he hiding even more strength inside that body of his? Tian Yenyu looked at Yuan with caution and excitement. Unbeknownst to her, she was witnessing less than 10% of Yuan's true prowess. That was an amazing fight. Senior apprentice Sister Yenyu, introduce your friend to us. The other disciples suddenly started rushing over. Tian Yenyu greeted her fellow core disciples with a smile. He's Xiao Yang, a friend that I'd met recently. Senior brother Xiao.
The disciples greeted him with respect.
How old are you, senior brother Xiao? You don't look any older than us.
I'm 19 years old.
What? You're actually that young? What is your cultivation? Are you from the Four Ancient family?
The disciples bombarded him with questions.
Hey! You're all getting too close. Stop bothering him and give him some room.
Seeing how the others were getting closer and closer to Yuan, Tian Yenyu quickly acted by pushing them away, acting like his bodyguard. The disciples were surprised by Tian Yenyu's unnatural behavior, so they subconsciously stepped away from Yuan.
Xiao Yang, let's go. There's a briefing that I must attend in a bit.
We can continue our tour afterward.
Tian Yenyu then said. All right.
After saying his goodbyes to the other disciples, Yuan left the scene with Tian Yenyu.
Is it just me, or did senior apprentice Sister Yenyu express jealousy just now? One of the disciples there asked a moment later. You think so, too? I'm not surprised, considering his talent and young age.
In fact, I'm even more surprised that I have never heard of him until today. The disciples didn't stay around for too long since they also needed to participate in the upcoming briefing.
What kind of briefing are you going to attend? It seems important. Yuan asked Tian Yenyu as he followed her to another peak.
It's definitely very important, as it affects not only our sect but all of the sects in the third heaven.
Oh? Now I am really intrigued.
Every 7 years, all of the sects gather to explore the Nameless Emperor's tomb. I'm sure you've heard of them before. They're basically gravesites created by powerful experts before their death so that they can pass down their legacy to those that pass the trials.
Nameless Emperor's tomb.
Yuan mumbled in a low voice. This has been a tradition since ancient times, and even though we've been exploring it for countless years, there are still plenty of powerful treasures to be found inside. There have even been occasions where people from the upper heavens come down specifically to explore the tomb.
Can anyone enter the Nameless Emperor's tomb? Or do they have to belong to a sect? Yuan asked. Anybody can enter the Nameless Emperor's tomb.
However, that isn't recommended, since you won't have any protection, meaning you'll have to fend for yourself if you're attacked, and this is true even if you have a big group with you.
Of course, this also applies to those in a sect. If you think the cultivation world is cruel out here, just wait until you go inside. Everything inside could be an enemy. Are you thinking about going inside the Nameless Emperor's tomb? Tian Yenyu asked him at the end.
I'm still thinking about it, but it does sound fun.
If you decide to join, let me know.
I can speak with my mother, who can probably get permission to let you wear our uniform while you're inside.
Thank you. Yuan nodded. Sometime later, they arrived in front of a building that looked like someone's residence. This is my living quarters.
I'm going to wash myself before I go to the briefing. You can either stay here and wait for my return or come with me to the briefing.
It's all up to you. I will come with you.
I want to learn more about this Nameless Emperor's tomb, after all.
All right, then I will see you in a bit. Tian Yenyu disappeared into the bathroom after they entered the building.
While Yuan waited for her to come back out, Feng Yuxian's voice suddenly resounded, "Young master."
I didn't realize this at first since it's been hundreds of years, but do you remember when I said that I'd found the Empyrean Overlord inside a legacy tomb 500 years ago? That was the Nameless Emperor's tomb. What? Yuan exclaimed after hearing this shocking information. Chapter 1098 Nameless Emperor's Tomb, 2. Are you sure about this, Foam Foam? Did you really find the Empyrean Overlord inside this Nameless Emperor's tomb? Yuan asked for confirmation.
I am certain, young master.
My memories are getting clearer and clearer.
I remember entering the Nameless Emperor's tomb 500 years ago shortly after I escaped to the third heaven. I lacked treasures that were not too powerful to sell in this realm at that time, so I decided to enter the tomb, and after a gruesome experience that totally took me by surprise, I'd acquired the Empyrean Overlord and other treasures. Feng Yuxiang recalled her experience, feeling a tingly sensation known as fear when she did. The Nameless Emperor's tomb is an incredibly dangerous and unfathomable place that even a divine beast who came from the upper heavens such as myself struggled greatly inside. In fact, I even died a few times. If it were not for my immortal body, I would have perished inside that legacy tomb 500 years ago.
Feng Yuxian's soul shivered just thinking about the nightmare she'd experienced while inside the Nameless Emperor's tomb. However, a bright smile appeared on Yuan's face when he heard this.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to go, but I cannot ignore such an opportunity after hearing this.
The Nameless Emperor's tomb must have something to do with my previous lives.
If I want to learn more about myself, I must go there. If that's the case, you should prepare yourself, young master. Even with your talents, I dare say that you'll still have some trouble inside. Hell, even the strongest cultivators can die in the most unlikely places.
I know. I'll be careful. Yuan said. The Nameless Emperor's tomb, huh? Yuan wondered how he was related to this legacy tomb and what he'll find inside.
If the Empyrean Overlord belonged to one of his past lives, there has to be a reason that it was inside the Nameless Emperor's tomb.
Hell, the creator of this legacy tomb could very well be one of his past lives.
Tian Yenyu came out of the bathroom about 20 minutes later with a fresh look and stronger fragrance, smelling like a flower that had recently bloomed.
Me. I'm ready to leave. How about you? She asked him.
Yes. Also, I have decided to explore the Nameless Emperor's tomb.
Yuan said. Great. I will speak with my mother after the briefing. It's fine. I can protect myself and I won't be alone. Right. I forgot about them. Tian Yenyu mumbled me. Anyways, we can talk about this later. Okay.
Sometime later, they stopped at the Grand Jade Peak, one of the largest peaks within the Jade Sword Manor. Though, the only time this place becomes active are during summonings that required a large portion of the sect to gather in one spot, and currently there are over 200,000 disciples gathered.
Impressive. Yuan was impressed by the sight when he arrived.
This is just 2/3 of all the disciples in the Jade Sword Manor, too.
Tian Yenyu said. While we wait, do you have any questions about the Nameless Emperor's tomb? Yes, Yuan suddenly halted his sentence when something in the Grand Jade Peak caught his attention.
He pointed at the massive stone statue in the distance and asked in a dazed voice, "Who is that?"
Tian Yenyu immediately knew what he was talking about even without looking at the statue.
He doesn't have a name because we don't know it, but we believe he's the Nameless Emperor. Tian Yenyu explained as she stared at the statue of a tall, masked figure.
How did you figure that out? Yuan continued to ask. Because you can find similar-looking statues inside the Nameless Emperor's tomb.
I see, but why put his statue in the sect?
Is he related to the sect in some way? No, not that I know of. According to our sect's history, the founder of the Jade Sword Manor was a mere rogue cultivator before creating this place.
He explored the Nameless Emperor's tomb with some success and found some sword techniques as well as treasures that allowed him to become a peak cultivator in the third heaven and create the Jade Sword Manor.
And he put that statue there as a way to pay respects to the nameless emperor, huh? Yuan mumbled. Pretty much. Tian Yenyu nodded. Yuan. That's the Lord. Lan Yingying's voice resounded shortly after. She immediately recognized the statue to be the same as the faceless statue that she'd taken care of since she was a child inside the mystic realm, but she was too surprised to say anything at first. Yes. Looks like he's related to the nameless emperor's tomb as well. Sometime later, a large group of figures could be seen approaching the Grand Jade Peak. The people from this group were all sect elders of the Sword Jade Manor, and they were all being led by an old man who was emanating a naturally sharp aura that made those around him feel as though they were constantly being threatened with a sword by their neck. Greetings, sect leader and sect elders. The world seemed to have trembled for a moment when all of the disciples greeted at the same time. That old man with the large silver sword behind his back is Yu Jian, our sect leader. Tian Yenyu mumbled to Yuan. Once they arrived before the disciples, Yu Jian descended until he was floating in front of the statue while the sect elders gathered around the disciples. It is that time again, my disciples. The nameless emperor's tomb will open for the world in 7 days, and it will remain open for 6 months. Yu Jian's voice boomed in their ears despite how soft it sounded. If you wish to explore the nameless emperor's tomb, you must enter in groups of 10, and your cultivation has to exceed 3rd level Spirit Lord. If you've never experienced the tomb before, know that even if you prepare for the worst, it won't be nearly enough to prepare you for the nightmares in that place. Yu Jian spoke in a solemn voice, sounding as though he was speaking from experience. Chapter 1099 Nameless Emperor's Tomb 3. You will be tested beyond your limits inside the Nameless Emperor's tomb. You will experience things that you wouldn't have even in your worst nightmares. There is an extremely high fatality rate inside where over half of those that enter never come back out. Even as a peak spirit king, I still have to tread the place with extreme care. If you are willing to go into purgatory and experience the worst of this world, then explore the Nameless Emperor's tomb. If you cherish your life, avoid it at all cost. Yu Jian continued to speak in a solemn voice, his words sending chills down all of the disciples' spine. Of course, he was not trying to scare the disciples on purpose. Every word that came out of his mouth was the truth and what he'd personally experienced, and he wanted them to know that the Nameless Emperor's tomb wasn't a playground for the weak. Hell, even the strong are considered weak inside, so one could say the strong doesn't exist when they are within the tomb. After taking a breather, Yu Jian continued, with that being said, if you decide to challenge the Nameless Emperor's tomb despite the danger, you could be rewarded with unfathomably powerful treasures or techniques that far surpass what should be allowed in our realm, just like our founder, who became one of the strongest cultivators during his era because he took the risks and was rewarded for it. The disciples swallowed nervously as they imagined the possibilities. Just several treasures from the Nameless Emperor's tomb made a rogue cultivator who used to be a nobody into a powerhouse and the founder of a top 5 sect. And since nobody knows how deep the tomb goes, since not a single soul has ever reached the end, the possibilities were literally endless. What if there exists a treasure at the end of the tomb that allows one to literally rule the 9 heavens? Such a thought would normally be considered as a delusion, but when it comes to the Nameless Emperor's tomb, this delusion seemed more realistic. Now let's talk about the Nameless Emperor's tomb itself. While nobody knows when it first appeared or when it was first discovered, we've been exploring it for at least 100,000 years now, but despite our efforts, we still don't know how much we've explored or how long it'll take before we learn its secrets. Unlike most legacy tombs, the Nameless Emperor's tomb is like a different world itself that one can explore freely, with the only restriction being their own strength. Although most of the treasures in the outer areas are long gone, there are still new secrets being uncovered every time we enter, and there are powerful techniques waiting for those who can comprehend them. Yu Jian would continue to talk about the Nameless Emperor's tomb for several more minutes before he dismissed the disciples. Me. Those of you determined enough to risk your life for a better life, come here in 7 days and I will bring you to hell. You are dismissed. Many disciples stuck around to talk to their friends and fellow disciples even after being dismissed. What do you think? Are you having second thoughts about the tomb now? Tian Yenyu asked Yuan in a teasing voice.
Even if it's a 90% chance of dying, I will still be willing to go.
Yuan smiled. Tian Suyin showed up a moment later. Is he causing you any trouble? She asked Tian Yenyu the moment she appeared. Of course not. Tian Yenyu shook her head with a bittersweet smile. Is that so? Anyways, do you plan on entering the tomb this year? If you are, I want you to come with me and your father. I do, but...
Tian Yenyu glanced at Yuan before continuing. I was thinking about going with Xia Yang.
What?
Tian Suyin frowned, and she shifted her focus to Yuan.
You're also going to enter the tomb? Are you going by yourself? Stop dragging my daughter into trouble with you. Mother. What are you saying? Have you forgotten about his strength? He's strong enough to defeat the Silent Rippers by himself.
If there's only one person in this place that is qualified to protect me, it's him. Actually, your mother is right, Miss Yenyu. I plan on going as deep as I can, and I am not confident in protecting myself, much less someone else.
Tian Yenyu showed clear disappointment on her face after hearing his words, but it was not like she didn't understand where he was coming from. Why, you're right. I'm sorry.
It was incredibly selfish of me to force you to protect me when the Nameless Emperor's tomb could threaten even a peak spirit king's life.
I guess I've been spoiled by you a little. Yuan smiled and said, I don't mind traveling with you at first, but we will have to separate once it becomes too dangerous. What do you think, mother? Can he come with us?
Tian Yenyu turned to look at her with pleading eyes. I'm not senseless enough to deny more helping hands, especially one as capable as his.
She said. It was at this moment another voice resounded, May I interrupt your conversation for a second?
They turned to see Yu Jian standing right next to them.
As sect leader. Tian Suyin was startled by his sudden appearance. Don't mind me.
I only want to speak with this young man for a bit. Yu Jian spoke while his gaze stared at Yuan's handsome face. I'm Yu Jian, sect leader of the Jade Sword Manor.
The sect leader is introducing himself first.
Tian Suyin swallowed nervously when she saw this, as this meant that he respected Yuan enough to become humble.
Nice to meet you, Senior Yu. I'm Xiao Yang, a wandering cultivator. Senior.
There's no need to be humble when we're both peak spirit kings. In fact, I might even be inferior to you when it comes to raw talent.
Yu Jian shook his head.
He noticed Yuan's profound aura even before he arrived at the Grand Jade Peak, but he has been resisting his urges to speak with Yuan until now.
Chapter 1100 Nameless Emperors 2-4. The sect master admitted being inferior to a junior before his own disciples? Tian Suyin cried inwardly when she saw this. She almost couldn't believe her ears.
Even if we have similar cultivation levels, it won't change the fact that you're older than me.
Anyways, what business do you have with me?
I was just wondering why you're in my humble sect.
A genius such as yourself usually doesn't show up unannounced.
I just wanted to see what kind of sect my friend belonged to, that's all.
I see. Yu Jian's gaze landed on Tian Yenyu for a second.
I hope this humble place is to your liking. If you have any troubles or concerns, don't hesitate to speak with me.
I cannot bother the sect leader over such minor issues. Yuan shook his head. Please, I insist. Yu Jian smiled.
And he continued, I will stop bothering you now, young friend.
If you encounter any problems, show them this medallion. He proceeded to hand Yuan a jade medallion that had his name on it.
He turned to look at Tian Suyin next and said, I'd like to speak with you whenever you're available.
Me. I am free right now. She immediately responded with a nervous look on her face.
Yu Jian nodded, and he left the scene with Tian Suyin.
It was obvious why the sect leader wanted to speak with Tian Suyin. He wanted to inquire about Yuan's existence. In his eyes, a genius like Yuan couldn't possibly have been born in their world, so it would only be logical to assume that he'd come from the upper heavens. In fact, he's already heard rumors about the Celestial Emperor sending down powerful experts for reasons that he has yet to learn. Looks like we won't need to ask my mother for the sect's protection.
Tian Yenyu mumbled in a dazed voice as she watched her mother leave with the sect leader.
Anyways, what do you want to do now?
We have a whole week to prepare for the Nameless Emperor's tomb.
She then asked. Is there a place where I can learn more about the tomb? She nodded, yes. We have a library full of information about the place. When do you want to go? Let's go now. All right. Follow me.
Tian Yenyu brought Yuan to the Jade Enlightenment Peak, where all sorts of information and techniques are stored. Naturally, this meant that guests weren't normally allowed inside even if they had a disciple with them.
However, Yuan had the sect leader's medallion, so Tian Yenyu took the chance and brought him there anyway.
After arriving at the Jade Enlightenment Peak, Tian Yenyu led Yuan to a tall pagoda that had 21 floors. This building is usually empty, but with the Nameless Emperor's tomb near, it was currently crowded with disciples.
Everything inside this building is related to the Nameless Emperor's tomb.
You can find others' experience inside the tomb and already discovered treasures all within this place.
I'm going to leave you alone to prepare myself. If you need anything, contact me through this. Tian Yenyu handed Yuan her communication jade slip. If you encounter any trouble, just flash the sect leader's medallion. It should settle most issues right there and then. Please don't cause any trouble because I will be responsible for it as your guide. Thank you.
Yuan smiled as he accepted the jade slip.
Tian Yenyu didn't linger for much longer and left shortly after.
Yuan approached the pagoda, but he was quickly stopped before he could even reach the staircase.
Hey! You! Stop right there!
A middle-aged woman flew towards him from a distance. Once she landed, she continued, even if you are an honorary guest, you are not allowed to be here.
Yuan didn't say anything and flashed the jade medallion he'd received from their sect leader.
The woman's eyes widened with shock for a moment, and her mouth stuttered as she tried to find the proper words to utter. After a moment of silence, she cleared her throat and handed him an accessory.
Hang this around your belt. If you lose it, more people will come to stop you. Now if you'll excuse me.
Not wanting to stay around any longer, the woman quickly fled the scene after giving Yuan the accessory. Yuan continued to approach the steps leading to the pagoda afterward, and sure enough, people would continue to stare at him, with some of them even starting to approach him, but when they saw the little accessory hanging on his belt, they stopped and turned around. Once he was inside, Yuan immediately began sweeping through the scrolls and jade slips on the shelves. And over the next 4 days, he would not take a step outside of the pagoda, spending all of his time staring at words. However, even if he was given a month, he wouldn't be able to read all of the information inside the pagoda, as it had been accumulated throughout tens of thousands of years. I have a good grasp of what to expect in the tomb, but I doubt it is enough to prepare me for what I plan on doing.
I guess I can only hope for the best. Yuan eventually left the pagoda after spending 5 days inside. He returned to Tian Yenyu's living quarters afterward. How was it? Did you find the information useful? Tian Yenyu asked him as she invited him inside. Somewhat.
I know what to expect in the beginning, but there is too little information about the deeper areas.
He sighed. I'm not surprised. Most people that went too deep never returned, after all. How about your preparation? Do you feel prepared for the tomb? Yuan then asked her.
No matter how much one prepares, they won't be prepared enough for the tomb.
She shook her head.
Anyways, I'm going to spend what little time we have left to meditate and mentally prepare myself.
What about you? Tian Yenyu said. I will do the same. You can use the room next to mine. Okay. Tian Yenyu returned to her room shortly after.